Hello, hello, everybody. How are you doing? Good to see you, Gorilla. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing good.
Well, great. How did your stream go earlier?
I'm pretty good. I think that Stranger Things got better in season two than it did in one. They're finally getting out their feet off the ground.
Well, I remember I was excited after watching season one. I was excited for season two as well, and well, I'll just say I was very disappointed. After season two, I didn't go back. But you
Uh,
never did. You see? Okay, how many have you gotten through so far on season two?
what?
Season two. How many episodes have you watched so far? Season
Oh,
two.
I think I've seen all season two, but it's been hard to remember. It's a while ago, so
No, I
we're
mean
real
during your reviews here.
two.
Okay, have you seen the part where they show where now I'm just kind of trying to remember because it's been a few years, but where somebody has a vision and they see some big giant monster in the underground or whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Okay, the reason why I stopped watching that show is because I was thinking, all right, then that looks exciting. Maybe they'll deal with this monster during the season, and they didn't. At the very end of this season, it showed that same monster. They never dealt with it. They never showed it, and that's when I stopped watching, and that's why I stopped watching it.
Yeah, but I think they were saving that for season three.
Well, because of that, they lost me as a viewer because that's you don't tease something in one season and save it for an. I can imagine, teasing something in an episode and saving it for the next episode. Or how about this? Showing something at the end of a season, like Star Trek. What is it? The best of both worlds. Whatever where they fought. I don't know the Gorn,
The
but
Borg.
the Borg. But you could show a cliffhanger at the end of a season, which will entice people back to the next season. But you don't show something at the beginning of a season and then never deal with it that season and then say, oh, well, maybe we'll get to the next season. No, no, that's why I tuned out.
Uh,
Yeah, that was not a smart decision on the. They should not have introduced it. I'll put it that way. If they're not going to show it, don't introduce it. At least in my opinion. But
uh.
like I say, that's just my opinion.
I think they're trying to build. I think the idea behind it was they're trying to build it up, get people excited for it to come back for season three. And it's kind of like a build up throughout the season to deal with it in season three.
Well, if that's their meaning, in my opinion, it's not very smart. Okay, so what are we dealing with today? We're going to be doing Gilligan's Island, right?
Yep.
We are on season one, episodes. What is it, 9 and 10, right?
No, we were on five and six. I thought Wrongway
Oh,
felt
I'm
or
sorry. I'm getting a little ahead of
Feldman.
myself. Okay, 5 and 6. Thank you.
Yeah, it's Wrongway Feldman and something for president.
Gilligan for president or President Gilligan?
Yeah,
Okay.
something like that.
All right. I'm getting my video file here ready to go so I can share it with you.
I got a lot of nitpicks in Wrongway Feldman or Feldman.
Oh, I don't. What was that?
I just got a lot of nitpicks in Wrongway Feldman. I'll point them out throughout the
All right.
episode here.
That's what we hear. Oh, so that's how it's working. All right. I'm just making a few adjustments here. Bear with me here.
Alrighty.
So yes, we're dealing with the first episode we're going to be dealing with is obviously Wrongway Feldman, and I got a little bit of history on that I'm going to be covering.
Yeah, with his plane Spirit of the Bronx. Now, back in the 30s, were all the planes like Spirit of something?
No, not necessarily. They did a Spirit. I think now I could be wrong, but I think they used Spirit was when it was an adventure plane, or, for example, like you heard of the Spirit of St. Louis, right?
Yeah, everybody's heard of that one.
All right. Well, the thing is that Wrongway Feldman was based on a real character whose name was Wrongway Corrigan, an Irishman who was actually flying. They sort of kind of hinted on it in this episode. Here, let me I had the notes here all ready to go, and the next thing you know, I got busy here doing other stuff. In fact, they even made a movie called The Flying Irishman based on him, starring the actual guy who got lost. Wrongway Feldman introduced Hans Conried in the title role, the series' very first guest star. In only the 5th episode, Gilligan discovers a biplane among the jungle foliage, the Spirit of the Bronx, which everyone recognizes as Wrongway Feldman plane, so named for his penchant for never ending up at his intended destination. According to Mr. Howell, he took off from Chicago and landed in New Orleans. Unfortunately, he was supposed to be in Minneapolis.
And hello, Euler.
Hello, Euler Greg. So good to see you here.
Yeah.
I guess I should. Well, that's one thing I forgot to do is I need to put a link down in the chat if anybody wants to join us. The first, here it is. This is exactly the quote I was trying to look for. The first guest character on Gilligan's Island is based on Douglas Corrigan, or Wrongway Corrigan, who was denied permission to fly to Ireland after he filed a flight plan. Later, he took off from Floyd Bennett Field in Brooklyn, New York, and flew to Ireland after flying a flight plan for Long Beach, California. See, so he was in Brooklyn, and he wanted to head to Long Beach, California, and he ended up in Ireland. Thus, he obtained the nickname Wrongway. Even though he was a skilled aircraft pilot and mechanic, it is agreed that his mistake was deliberate. So that's what I wanted to mention. This is actually the Wrongway Feldman character is based on several people, or based on a real person. I'm sorry. And what I wanted to cover also, the guest star of tonight's episode, his name is Hans Conried. And I don't know if there's a lot of fans out there. I'm sure there are fans out there, people of all ages, who might recognize his voice from several things, which I'll be covering here really, really fast. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. But he did a lot of cartoons. He not only did a lot of acting roles, but he was in movies as well as TV shows, bit parts as well as longer parts. But what I'm going to focus on here was some of the more famous things that people might recognize. He was the voice in The Grinch Night, a short from a Grinch cartoon in 1977. He was also in Dr. Seuss on the Loose, a TV short. He was a narrator. He was the Sneetch by the bonfire, the north-going Zax, and the south-going Zax. He was also in Horton Hears a Who, where he was the narrator for Horton. So if any of you guys have seen the original Horton Hears a Who cartoons, Hans Conried was the narrator.
Okay.
And he was also in the original cartoon series of George of the Jungle as the narrator. He was also in a cartoon, Hoppity Hooper, about a frog, but I don't know if a lot of people are going to remember that. And he did the Bullwinkle show. He did the voice of Snidely Whiplash, Redwood, among many other characters in the Bullwinkle show. So if there's any fans of the Bullwinkle show, I think you'll recognize his voice. He was also played Captain Hook in the Disney cartoon Peter Pan, as well as in the Arabian Nights. And he was also in Sleeping Beauty, the cartoon. He did the voice of Lord Duke. And he did the voice of the witch in Hansel and Gretel. So, among many, many, many other things, I'm looking at his repertoire, and he's done a lot. So I'm going to start here. Here we are. I'm going to make sure I mute this because I don't want to get in trouble. Okay, and I'm going to set my subtitles. Bear with me just a moment. I decided I'm going to start adding subtitles. It'll help you and I remember what exactly they're saying, as well as help the audience out there kind of understand some of the jokes. Okay, so here we are where we always begin. This is the first episode of Wrongway Feldman. And we start with the doc, of course. I'm double checking to make sure everybody can see this. Do you see it, Chase? What do you see right now?
I see the doc. where they're about to begin the longest 3-hour tour of their life.
Okay. I'm not sharing the rights. What am I doing wrong here? Bear with me here just a second.
So are you seeing something different than I am?
Yes. Okay. What you're seeing here is that. Bear with me here a second. I think I had too many windows open. Let me close my GIMP. All right, let me do this again. There we go. Now one. Now I got this right. You should see Gilligan. Is that correct?
Yep.
All right. Now we're in the right place. So here we are at the usual beginning. We have the dock, and we have Gilligan, and we have the skipper.
Yeah.
And of course, the weather starts getting rough. And here we are. By the way, another piece of trivia I wanted to mention: the name of the boat is SS Minnow. And if any of you are wondering what does the SS stand for, it stands for sailing ship. Even though the Minnow did have motors, it was regarded also as a sailing ship because it had sails as well.
Okay. I still don't see how they couldn't have patched the holes with everything out there. And hey there, Hakeem, welcome.
Hello, team. Good to see you. And thank you for calling out the people in the chat, Gorilla. Once again, of course, I can't see because I'm going through the video file, but I do want to try to cover everybody's comments. Let me do that really quick.
I'll keep you posted there.
Hello, Gorilla. There you go. This is why I need to give you control over this, where you can select the comments up in the stream like I'm doing now. Oiler Greg says, hello, guys. And Gorilla says, hey, Oiler. And there we are. Is it going to change? My mouse is acting funny. What is going on here? And Akeem says, hello, Pop Gorilla in chat. Good to see you as well, Akeem. So we have Natalie Schaefer, and this is a little, I wanted to cover this really quick. It's something I mentioned to Gorilla in another stream the other night. But Natalie Schaefer and Jim Backus, who played the millionaires, in real life were actual millionaires. Now, of course, they were not married to each other. They both at the time. But when they both passed away, their estates were worth several millions of dollars. Natalie Schaefer was worth more than Jim Backus. But they were still basically millionaires. And they were the only ones that were millionaires. The rest of the cast did not get... A lot of people seem to believe or think that the people who starred in Gilligan's Island with all the reruns over the years were rich because of all the residuals. But back then, the way contracts were written for television is they only saw about the first residuals from about the first 5 airings of each episode. And then after that, they received nothing. So basically, all that profit and all that money was going towards the producer. So Sherwood Schwartz basically ended up the billionaire. Not a millionaire, but a billionaire. In between Gilligan's Island and the Brady Bunch, he was an extremely rich man.
Oh, he made the Brady Bunch?
Brady Bunch alone.
You're cutting out.
Just to, I can't hear. Your mic is breaking up.
Oh, yours was breaking up.
Mine's breaking up. Okay, try now. Would you ask me? Try to ask me again.
He made the Brady Bunch?
Yes, Sherwood Schwartz, who made Gilligan's Island, also did the Brady Bunch. And
okay.
The Brady Bunch is also a successful. Yeah, and the Brady Bunch, I'm sure you guys know, was equally as successful, and is also still in syndication. He sold the overseas rights to Brady Bunch for $1 billion, just for the overseas rights. Yeah. So he was a very rich man.
Yeah, the Brady Bunch was the first show to show a married couple in the same bed.
TV show.
Well, yeah, TV show. That's
Right, because it had already been done in a movie called Yours, Mine, and Ours. That was the movie that was the inspiration for the Brady Bunch, starring Henry Fonda and Lucille Ball. That's something I should cover later on as well.
yeah.
But since I mentioned Jim Backus and Natalie Shaper, um, Alan Hale and Bob Denver, the original stars, Gilligan and Skipper, weren't quite as rich. A lot of these actors struggled over the years because, like I said, they didn't get residuals, and a lot of them were typecast as the characters on Gilligan's Island, and it really hurt their careers. That's one of the reasons why Tina Louise did not do a lot of appearances with them, and that's what caused kind of some friction when they were making the made-for-TV reunion movies. Is she was trying to distance herself from the character, and did that help her? Well, she made a few movies after that, but I think she was ultimately typecast, and she knew it, and they all knew it. But the difference is they all of them embraced their characters. Natalie Shaper in an interview said she was walking down the street one day by herself with a friend in L.A. and somebody came up to her and said, "Mrs. Howell, how are you? How are you doing?" And she said, and she would always answer, "Oh, I'm doing fine. I know I'm doing wonderful. How are you?" And the person asked her, "Well, how's your husband? How's Mr. Howell?" And she goes, "Well, my husband's dead." And they said, "Mr. Howell is dead?" She goes, "No, no, no. I'm not married to Jim Backus. She's referring to her actual husband at the time. And unfortunately, Dawn Wells, who played Marianne, she was making money from appearances, and she has a book called Marianne's Cookbook and other things like that. But as she got older, unfortunately, in the last couple of years of her life, she became really ill, and she had to spend a great deal of her what money she had on her doctor bills. And it got to the point where I had her on my Facebook. It got to the point where they had to have a GoFundMe account, and a lot of fans donated money to help her. And we also kind of helped her put her in a retirement home. And she had a sale where she was selling everything out of her house. It was really sad and kind of depressing towards the end. But financially, basically, what I meant to say is that they all did okay, but they mostly struggled, other than Jim Backus and Natalie Shaper. So anyway, on with the show. I'll try to keep this one short and brief. Sorry, people. And here we are, Gilligan's Island. And here we open with this shot here. Once again, of course, produced by Sherwood Schwartz and directed by Ida Lupino. I've mentioned her before. She's an actress who is also in movies. And she's in that movie that I recommended for you, that H.G. Wells movie, Food of the Gods, about the giant monsters.
Okay.
Here we go, Gilligan is hunting down food. So as you can see, he's got a coconut in his right hand, and he's got that pole in his left hand with looks like melons and pineapple.
Yeah. And we come to my first nitpick.
And your first nitpick is what?
Well, he got a plane in the middle of the jungle. How that
Right.
thing would have fallen apart, crashing into the trees. It would have been destroyed.
What if a lot of that vegetation grew up around it? Because they did say it was there for 30 years.
Yeah, but it still would have hit the trees. Those trees are
Oh,
more
possible.
than 30 years old.
Very possible. Unless it dropped out of the sky.
I'm not sure how those planes flew, but I'm pretty sure they needed kind of like a bigger runway.
They did. But when it comes to, well, you got to remember they do need a big runway when it comes to taking off. But when they have to crash land, they don't have a lot of choice. They have to, just deal with whatever they have.
Yeah,
So Gilligan's walking by. He spots the plane.
Yeah, and you're the expert
What's
on
that?
planes here. You're the expert on the planes.
Oh, no, I'm not an expert. If anything, that would be Sandra Feliciano from King Dolphin TV. Sandra and Raymond Feliciano run that channel, and she's an actual pilot. I wish there was somebody to have her on here. She could give us some advice on this, but I am far from being an expert on planes.
Well, you were in the Air Force, so.
I was in the Air Force, but that does not mean I worked on airplanes. I wish I did, but nope. I was assigned to. Well, let me put it this way: when I signed up for the Air Force, the job I wanted to sign up for was radio and television broadcasting. I wanted to get into electronics. That was my field. I had experience in it already, And they said, yeah, sure, sign right here. And I signed right there. And then as soon as I enlisted, I found out, oh no, they stuck me somewhere where they needed me, not what I wanted. So like many other people, I got stuck in a position that was not a good job, and everybody else that was there were like, "What am I doing here?" We're all staring at each other like, "What are we doing here? We didn't sign up for this." So you find out when you go in the military, there are a lot of jobs that people don't want to do, but they'll stick people in there because they know nobody wants to do it. And then they'll tell you, "Well, after your 4 years, if you want to re-enlist, then we'll give you the job we originally promised." But I didn't like that. I found that very deceitful. And
Yeah.
I mean, talk about a lie. That's like an extreme lie for 4 years. So that's why I did not re-enlist. And I only did one term and
Yeah.
got out.
Well,
If
hey
they
there,
hadn't lied to
Pickles.
me, who knows?
Yeah.
Hello,
And
LDG. Good
hello.
to see you there, sir.
Yeah. Well, I think if they didn't, they kind of want to make sure people can do multiple jobs in case needed, and plus they're that yeah. You're not exactly promised to go to a certain position, a certain spot. They probably put you where they think you'll most benefit.
Well, right. But considering I had a good education, I just, I know, and I'm not conceited, and I don't consider myself this. Definitely, by far, I'm not the smartest person in the world. But I really think that I was above pumping gas. That's what they did. I was pumping gas.
Oh,
So I was the person that drove the gas truck up to the airplanes and then pumped them full of gas and then drove away. Does that make sense?
yeah. Hey, maybe you're the only one that could drive a stick.
Well, no, I guarantee you they were automatics. They were automatics.
Oh.
Right. I'm not that old.
Well,
I'm
I didn't
old, but
know.
I'm not that old.
I'm not sure what I thought. A lot of the old military trucks were sticks up till like the '90s and
Nope.
2000s.
Nope. We had different kinds of vehicles. We had big tanker trucks and we had smaller, but they were all automatics. And it makes sense because they did have people that enlisted that did not know how to do. I do myself know how to drive a stick shift, but a lot of people don't, and I think they were aware of that fact. And
Yeah,
plus, they probably didn't want to bother having to train people how to drive a stick shift and how to use a clutch and all that kind of stuff.
they don't
So
need a break in the clutch in the middle of a battlefield, huh?
right, or stripping that clutch, right, and grinding those gears and ruining that transmission. That's the biggest problem if you got somebody who doesn't know what they're doing.
Oiler Greg here just said that's pop culture's Air Force cover story. He was really in SG-1 while in the Air Force.
Oh, right, yeah. Wink, wink. Right. I just tell everybody the whole gas story. Yes. I mean, believe I was a fool. I had dreams of grandeur. I thought I'm gonna be on a plane. I'm gonna do. I thought maybe like I would be on the radio. I thought maybe I'd be the radio guy on a plane. I'd be the guy who is in the cockpit, contacting. The ground control and all that stuff. But nah, I wasn't quite so lucky. Maybe if I'd have re-enlisted, they would have given me what I wanted. But that's not what I got. When I entered the Air Force, I'd already had experience working at a television station. There was a local PBS station that was looking for volunteers, and I signed up for it when I was 15. So by the time I was 17, I had done camera work, stage direction work. I had worked the mixer, the video mixer, all that stuff. So I had all that kind of experience, and that's what I was hoping to do. But they took the kind of rained on my parade.
Yeah.
That happens. But like I
Well,
said, I
yeah.
wasn't the only one. So here we are. Gilligan spots the plane, and he hesitates for a second because he's not sure if he sees the right thing. He does a double take and looks again, and yes, that's a plane. And here's where he looks at the coconut, thinking that maybe there's something wrong with the coconut or what he's drinking. And he drops the fruit and realizes the plane is real. And this is where he rushes down to the plane. If I can get some shots that
So,
aren't blurry.
yeah. So,
Yes,
so you got the old LSD coconut, huh?
the old LSD coconut. Maybe it was fermented.
Yeah.
Because that's one thing. I mean, think about it, Gorilla. If we were on a desert island, wouldn't one of the first things you want to do is learn how to ferment some of that fruit to make alcohol, right?
Yeah.
So here's Gilligan discovering the plane, and you can see it's covered by cobwebs, so it's been there a long time. And it's an old biplane. So that's like World War One era,
Yeah.
even
You
before
think
World
they
War
will notice that
Two,
if we're going every week is about a
and
week?
along based on his similar to this.
Yeah. Now you think when they scoured the island for stuff, they will notice this plane, and since they've been there for like 5 weeks, we're going 1 week per episode.
Well, that's just it, though. We're still debating on the size of the island. We still have never, they've never really established the size of that island. There's still parts that they haven't discovered yet. As we'll see in the next episode, right? Because they discovered a cave, we know that. So now in this episode, they're discovering a plane, and then they discover something else in the next episode.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Gilligan's excited, and he realizes the plane is real. And here's the point where he says he's going to go back and he's going to tell. I want to make sure. Do I have my subtitles on? Bear with me here for a second. I thought I had them on. So we're watching episode 5, right?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Gilligan realizes the plane is real, and now he's heading back to tell the castaways. And of course, the first thing he does, and he brings the castaways back. They're all excited.
Yeah, maybe Oil
Yes?
Greg's comment is blocking the subtitles. He left the comment up. Maybe that's blocking the subtitles. Okay, maybe not.
Well, I'll get that. They haven't.
Yeah.
I'll find out when they start talking here. So here's where they're excited, and they start clearing all the debris away from the plane. There we go. So the subtitles are working. So how are we doing? There we go.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm sure you'll remember this is very reminiscent of the second reunion movie where they discover the plane on the island and they escape. And the plane, if you remember, Gilligan has to jump out of the plane, and they land the plane, and the engine falls off. So this is very similar to that.
I don't remember that. Are you talking about the second episode?
Well, it's no. What I'm talking about is when you and I, our first Gilligan's Island stream, I showed 2 movies that I thought was an influence for Gilligan's Island, and then I showed the second movie where, okay, now I'll try to make this quick for everybody listening. The first reunion movie was called Escape or Rescue from Gilligan's Island. And if you remember, okay, they got rescued, they went back to civilization in Hawaii, and at the end of that movie, they all got on a cruise and crashed on the same island again. You remember that?
Yeah.
And then the very next movie, they discovered a plane. And they got the plane running. They found gas and everything. And they got on the plane, took off, and were flying. And Gilligan accidentally fell out of the plane. They landed to pick him up. But they found out they were up in the air just long enough for the military to spot them on radar. And then that's when they created the island resort. So
Okay.
if you don't remember, go back and watch our first episode, and you'll see where I did cover that Gilligan's Island movie in pretty good detail.
Okay.
So this is what the professor is explaining to them, kind of like what you were talking about. He was saying that even though the plane has been there for many, many years, well, considering the fact that this plane must have landed here 25 or 30 years ago, it's remarkable. And one of them mentions, I know the words now, since I'm having to skip through this, I can't play the video. It's not going to play the words in exactly the order with the character. But Gilligan says it's too bad it doesn't have a big, powerful jet engine. And then this professor explains to him that jet engines were not hadn't at that point. And this is where, by another here's another slight mistake. Is Ginger is very impressed with the professor. She's assuming that once they get this plane running, the professor can fly it out. But he tells her that he is not a pilot and he has no experience behind a plane behind a wheel. Even though in, like I said, the second Gilligan's Island movie, the professor does fly the plane without question. He does not say he's not a pilot. So that's a little different detail that they kind of changed later on.
I bet you he could fly back to Hawaii and then just crash it into the harbor.
Yeah, just crash it into the harbor, huh? That's simple enough.
Give it a
I think
water
it's just.
landing. Give it a
I
water
bet.
landing.
Well, first you have to get it up in the air, and then you have to learn how to keep it up in the air with all the wind currents and everything. I mean, me, of course, I would risk it instead of being on a plane or on an island for the rest of my life. I'd risk it too, but I would tell everybody honestly, I'm not a pilot, so you guys all better stay here because I may just crash it and kill myself.
Well,
But I will try to.
maybe secretly he didn't want to get off the island because Ginger was giving him some good. Let's give him some, some real good.
Well, right. Well, notice how he's kind of tugging at his collar. It's funny because you can tell he's feeling uncomfortable when she starts talking like this because she's giving him her ginger talk. And as you can see, I mean, he's kind of like a little uncomfortable here. Because remember, this show did not want to actually go there, which is kind of funny because this is a family show. So I'm glad they didn't really delve heavily into that. But they did want to show that she's a very attractive and beautiful woman. And she definitely was a very alluring.
Even though everybody preferred Marianne.
Well, because she's a girl, as Don Wells said, they all preferred Marianne because she could take home to mom. So this is the professor saying, "I believe this engine could be repaired."
Yeah, LGC says keeping it up is hard.
Keeping it up is hard. Now with Ginger and Marianne around.
More Marianne.
More Marianne. And the professor says, "I believe this engine could be repaired." And they believe they were saying we can fly out of here. And Professor says there's only one problem, Gilligan, because the skipper was on an air. This is where the professor says that he's not a pilot, and and then Gilligan says, "Well, the skipper was on an aircraft carrier in the military."
Wait. This is another nitpick I had here, because
Yes.
remember that sleepwalking episode? If he was on an aircraft carrier, he wouldn't not be in the landing craft going on to Guantanamo or Guadalcanal there and fixing a radio. If he was a cook on the radio on an aircraft carrier,
What if somehow that he was also right? Normally, he would be stationed as a cook, but maybe it was an emergency, and the actual radio repairman was dead.
yeah, but he still would be storming the. Would they send the cook to storm the beaches of Guadalcanal?
Did he say he did that?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was in a landing craft about to storm onto the island of Guadalcanal out there, and somehow something happened to the radio. He had to quickly fix it.
Well, then I guess what they do is they're kind of loose with their canon here, so it's going to change and adapt throughout the series.
Yeah.
But here's where he said he was just a cook aboard the aircraft carrier. And Marianne says, "I knew a crop duster once in Kansas."
Yeah.
You see, with all that experience, we can do it. See, even though they're mentioning everybody else that they know about a pilot, but not one of them is actually a pilot. And the skipper says we can't do it, and the professor agrees, saying, "I'm afraid the skipper's right. We could never do it." And I hope showing these subtitles don't get me.
No, you'll be fine.
And the professor explains to them, which is the truth. We're probably better off salvaging the parts of the plane. Well, it was a peachy idea while it lasted. And Marianne says, "Oh, let's go fix dinner." And Gilligan's kind of sad because he was hoping that they would get the plane flying and get out of there. And Gilligan says, "Oh, it'd be nice to have one chance." And the professor said, "That's all you get, Gilligan, one chance." And they decide, "Professor, we've got one chance. We've got to take it. Now, come on, I'll clean off the tail gear." And they decide to go ahead and try anyway. So they're all excited. Now they start working on the plane to start clearing everything around it.
Yeah.
And along come the Howells. They had heard Gilligan saying something about a plane, so they were coming to check out the nuisance.
Yeah.
And there's Mr. Howell yelling for them, and Gilligan says, "Over here." Oh, of course, and Mrs. Howell is complaining because she's having to walk through the bushes.
Well, take
And
the
Professor
path
notices
next time.
the instrument. Right, well, you had better make a path, I guess, if you walk through it long enough or enough times. And the professor says, so this instrument panel's in pretty good shape. And as you can see, Mrs. Howell is very excited. And she says Gilligan was absolutely right. So I guess they kind of doubted Gilligan when he was mentioning it. And Mr. Howell says, obviously non-schedule. Let's go, Levy. Of course, he's always got to have a joke.
Mm.
And then that's when they notice the wording on the side of the plane, in the spirit of the Bronx. And Mr. and Mrs. Howell remember, because obviously they're older than everybody else. So they remember from the news reports of the 1930s of Wrongway Feldman, and they recognize that as his plane. And here's where they sort of explain the story, and the professor is apparently aware of it as well. And this is where they were talking about how he was going from one place from the Bronx to another place in the U.S., and he ended up halfway around the world. So this is where they kind of mentioned Wrongway Corrigan without saying it. Yes?
Oh, I thought they mentioned. Oh, wait, maybe it's in a couple more, a little bit here further. That he was going from. He was going from Chicago to New Orleans. There they go. And Skipper said that's pretty good for those days. And Mr. Howell says he's supposed to be going to Minneapolis.
Right, exactly. But in real life, the actual Corrigan ended up in Ireland, which is fantastic. And even like I said, he was going in real life. He was going from the Bronx to Long Island, California. So he wanted to go all the way across the U.S. You think he would have known the thing that in real life with Wrongway Corrigan, he would have known if he was not flying over the land, the great landmass America. So he had to know that he was flying over water the whole time. So that's why they did say that they thought that he probably did it on purpose.
Now I got a question.
So they figure Wrongway Feldman.
Yeah. Did they need to have pilot license back then, or anybody could fly?
Yes. You had to have a pilot license.
So how the hell did he get one when he's notorious for going the wrong way?
Well, because maybe he got the license and then he didn't start making mistakes until after, but he got maybe got older and a little feeble.
Because I know he was in World War One.
Right, and the Howells did mention that he was young and dashing and daring with black hair, so he was younger when he disappeared. And obviously the real Wrongway Corrigan did not disappear. So I think they're kind of mixing up a little bit of Amelia Earhart into this. Because obviously she disappeared and she was an explorer on a plane. So here's where they realized, so Wrongway Feldman, so that's what's happened to him, because they had heard of his disappearance. And see, this is where Mrs. Howell says, really, it was way back in the 30s, which means Gilligan's Island takes place in the 60s, so we're talking about 30 years, like the professor said. He said the plane had been there probably 20 or 30 years. And here's where, of course, the Howells had invested in his first plane. Of course, the Howells were involved. There it is. See, that was pretty good for those days. He was supposed to fly to Minneapolis, so there we are.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Right. And I guess that's how he got his nickname, huh? He bombed his own airfield, POW, and that's how he got the name Wrongway Feldman also.
Hey, wait, I got a question. So, if he would bomb the Allies' airfield instead of the Central Powers there, wouldn't he have been court-martialed and stuck in prison
very
for
likely.
Like 20, 30 years?
Very, unless they proved it was an accident. Because court-martial, I think you'd have to do something intentionally. Or it'd have to be complete insubordination. Like, for example, you'd have to have done it intentionally or out of negligence because you weren't doing your job, you weren't paying attention. But perhaps in the confusion, he did on it, and maybe he was dismissed of the charges. And Wrongway Corrigan in real life did not bomb an airfield. I think that they just added that in here for humor.
Yeah.
And here's what the professor says. Regardless, he still did a lot of for aviation. So I guess he was a role model back then, an inspiration.
Maybe he's the reason they put compasses in the airplanes.
Very likely, right? You got to fly with a compass. And the skipper said, well, for my money, I wish he was here right now. And this is where Mrs. Howell describes him. The jet black hair and that slim waist and that wonderful white scarf flying in the wind. And this is where they say that he's probably dead by now. And then Mr. Howell says, or to that great hanger in the sky. Knowing wrong way, it's hard to tell which way he went. So that's another joke. All right. And then they hear a voice. I'll tell you where I went. And there he is popping up from out of the bushes. And like I said, for any of you, if you have seen this episode, or if you have not, I advise you to watch it. You will recognize his voice from many of television and movie productions. Wrongway, you're alive.
Yeah, I take it they had Skipper had a stash of razors on the ship.
Or you could maybe he sharpened a seashell.
Well,
and they had tools, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
I
just noticed that they're all very clean shaven, not even scruffles.
What about what they do for toilet paper, huh? Palm leaves?
Yeah, that was excusable. Palm leaves, definitely.
Well, as long as they don't find poison ivy on accident, right?
Well, they got poisonous flowers on there. We find out that in the next episode.
True.
Which I'm surprised they didn't get rid of them. But anyhow.
And this is where they ask how he managed all these years. And the professor says, are you really Wrongway Feldman? And here's where he explained he's been on the island for 30 years. So imagine he's been on that island longer than they were on the island. They were only for 15 years before they were rescued. So he's on the island twice that time. And that's when he had heard a noise and saw Gilligan nosing around the plane. And they introduced themselves. And as you can see,
notice he flirts with the only married gal on the whole island.
Well, you got to remember now, Marianne and Ginger are all cooking dinner, so she's the only woman he's seen in 30 years. She's the first woman in 30 years he has seen. Oh, and something else that I forgot to mention earlier in a previous stream is I mentioned that Natalie Schaefer, when she filmed this role, she was 65 years old, far older than the rest of the cast. But they did not know that. So she would not tell anybody her age when she got the job. She was just one of those, I'm a lady and I don't share my age. So they didn't find out until years later what her actual age was, and they were very surprised. And here he is flirting with Mrs. Howell. And Mr. Howell doesn't quite like that, as you can tell here. Even a Howell can get jealous. And she says, you see, Thurston's just a little bit jealous. I'm not jealous. I don't want him slobbering all over those expensive gloves. Come along. Yes, this is much better with the subtitles, I'd say. And off go the Howells. And this is where they're looking at Wrongway Feldman as sort of a celebrity status. And here's where he explained how he survived all these years. Physical fitness, iron will, perseverance, and 64 bottles of scotch. You think by now you need to get a liver transplant. So he has 64 bottles of scotch in with his provisions. And you'll notice here he says, after the first 3 years, I gave up trying to fix it. But in real life, the actual Wrongway Corgman was a mechanic. So he was able to, if he was in this predicament, was able to repair the airplane himself if possible.
Yeah, but he might have had the spare parts. He's not like the professor and build a radio out of a coconut.
Well, that's what I'm saying, right? If possible, because some parts, if they're bent or destroyed, there's nothing you can do. I mean, you can try to replace them with something, but sometimes it may just be irreparable. But with the professor's wonderful mind, you never know. And there it is. The professor volunteers. Maybe I'd be able to fix it. And he suggests that maybe he can use some parts from the boat, from the minnow. That's the spirit. You fix her up, I'll fly her right out. And that's just what they were hoping to hear.
Yeah. And
Mr.
hello,
Wrongway, you're the best
Russell.
thing that ever happened to us.
Yeah. And hello, Germ. How's it going?
Hello, Resolute Germ. Okay. And so the skipper is taken Wrongway to the supply hut, and they decide to work together on getting the airplane running. And the first thing that Ron Feldman does is head to the wrong direction and realizes what he does and turns around and follows them.
Mm-mm.
And this is where the professor tells Skipper that he needs another bolt. So see if there's some in the toolbox, will you? So he does. And Wrongway Feldman is sitting off to the side drinking papaya punch, which sounds delicious.
It partly passed
There we
its
are.
prime, so he fermented the papaya punch.
I think
Yeah.
they may have. And I know it's possible. I personally don't know how to do it. But I know it's possible. People in jail, they ferment raisins, bananas, everything they can get their hands on.
Yeah, yeah, the old toilet wine.
Toilet wine. And this is where Gilligan is telling Wrongway Feldman about jet engines. And Wrongway Feldman's playing out propellers that fly 600 miles an hour.
Yeah, could they go 600
And
miles
he
an hour
explains,
back
yes, he
then?
certainly must have missed a lot over the last 30 years.
Oh wait, never mind. They had the
Yep,
the Concorde.
much
Never
faster
mind.
now even.
Yeah, never mind. I
No,
forgot
they
about
didn't
the
have a
Concorde.
Concorde back then.
But that was 70s.
No, the
So
Concorde wasn't back then.
no, but I was
I would
saying
say
in the
more of
70s.
80s.
That was 80s. So I know it died
Wait,
in
late 70s
2000.
when Concorde came out. That's right. Late 70s.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, it was late
yeah.
70s when the Concorde came out.
Okay.
There was a series of disaster movies called Airplane, or Airport, sorry, Airport. Airport 1975, Airport 1976. And they had sequels and so on. And I remember that 1979 was Airport 79, the Concorde. Airport 79 is what it was. And that's when the Concorde was still relatively new.
Yeah, and it died in
And ironically, they found out the
2003.
Concorde really did have problems. Yeah, it had issues, so they decided to ground it.
Yeah, Germ says anything with high sugar ferments well enough.
Sure does. And considering all that fruit they had on that, I would probably be going for pineapple. That's my favorite. I would make it some kind of
Pineapple wine.
alcoholic pineapple drink. That's what we used to call it. And this is where Gilligan explains you missed the Second World War, and Wrongway Feldman didn't even know there was a Second World War. And he says, "Really?"
Yeah, because he goes, oh, that's what all that noise was.
Right. That's what all that noise was.
And apparently he was an ace in World War One.
Right. Which means an excellent shot. And he must have taken a lot, knocked down a lot of German bombers. Diving out of his Bristol Scout.
Then he talks about his wingman Bucky Lorenzo there, who got court-martialed for he blew something up that was 3 years after the war.
Right. He downed 3 German. That sure is a great story about. It was 3 years after the war was over, right? So I guess maybe the guy maybe had forgotten.
Yeah, I can't remember
Or,
where he bombed. And Germ here says the Concorde's only real problem was it cost so damn much and it never could make money. Yeah, plus the people in New York were bitching because they were getting sonic booms when the planes were taking off from the airport.
well, they didn't have a problem raising money. The seats were very, very expensive. So only the rich and the elite were able to get seats aboard the Concorde. And they did. They took advantage of it when they could.
Yeah.
And it was also
Yeah.
very small and cramped. If you're a tall person, You had to really hunch over for the Concord.
Yeah, and Oiler Gray says 5 kills makes an ace.
That very well could be right.
Yeah, but the standards could have changed in World War One.
That's kind of the inside joke they do with Snoopy and Charlie Brown with the Red Baron.
Yeah, Snoopy and the Red Baron.
And here's where the professor asks Wrongway Feldman if he has any penetrating oil. So I guess that's similar to WD-40.
Oh, go back for a second. With those subtitles there, that makes it look so wrong. Have you got any penetrating oil? Wrong way. It's almost like he's asking for some lube. Well, technically he is, but. Sorry, my mind's in the gutter with that.
No, it's okay. I need to hush my dog up. All right. With luck, we should be through here in a couple of hours. So they're working on that plane. Everything's looking great. And here's where we use the slang for the planes. 3 heinies come at me.
I thought they called them Jerry's.
I don't know. I haven't heard of that term. And what they use here, the term they use, I don't know if they made it up for this episode or if it's based on true life.
Yeah, because I always thought that they always called the Germans Jerry's.
I heard something else. What was it I heard? Krauts. I don't want to get us flagged, but I thought they called them Krauts.
Oh yeah, that too. Yep. And I also heard Fubar. And they're like, what's that? It's German.
Oh, interesting.
That was from Saving Private Ryan.
Okay.
Yeah, when they kept saying it was Fubar, and the guy's like, the one guy didn't understand the acronym there. So he's like, what's that? And the other guy just responded, it's German. Even though it is our acronym for fucked up beyond recognition.
Yes, beyond all repair.
Oh, okay. Resolute correct. We're both right. Jerry's was World War One. Kraut was World War Two.
All right, gotcha. But yeah, what I need to do is do my research a little bit better on these episodes before we actually air them. It would help, I guess. I should know what I'm talking about.
You're absolutely. You do plenty of research there. This is just random stuff that we've heard. It's that we know, and that's what we're here for. Is that's
I know, but
information.
I'm always going to feel like I'm not putting in enough or I'm not doing it right.
Oh no, like the Concord thing was nothing. You shouldn't have been able to expect that. And then the whole Jerry's comment there, that's not unexpected stuff. You got plenty of background information.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And
the stuff you're feeling like you're unprepared for is just the random stuff we just kind of came up.
Well, right. We stop and then we kind of cover certain subjects, right? And this is where the skipper tells Gilligan that he thinks there's something wrong with the rear tire and that he needs to check it, and he thinks that it's loose. So he tells Gilligan he'll lift the tail. And we know the skipper's a strong man, but this is enough to make him strain. And there's Gilligan checking out that rear tire, and the rear tire pops out completely. Yes?
Yeah, but would he really be able to lift that plane up like that?
The rear, okay. I would say yes, because biplanes were not that heavy. This is back when there was not that much technology, and he's lifting up the rear, and all the weight is in the front on the engine. So I think it's possible. I would almost be wondering if it's not as heavy as they make it look. But it's very possible. I do think it could be lifted by one person if they're strong enough.
Okay. And Oiler Greg has a tidbit for us. Jerry's was a slang term derived from the 5-gallon jerry cans the Germans used for extra fuel.
Yes, that's those big ones they used to have tied to fastened to the back of Jeeps. So anybody who's seen MASH, you'll see those big cans that he's talking about. In fact, that's another thing. Those Jeeps they use those for many, many, many years. Those are very reliable. So the wheel pops out, and Skipper's still struggling with the tail end, and he shows Skipper the wheel, and Skipper's still struggling. Tells him to get put something under the tail of the plane, and Gilligan says, "There's a rock over here." And unfortunately, that rock is much bigger than Gilligan, and he's not able to lift it. And I can't move it, Skipper. And Skipper is still struggling. And Skipper is joking, "Would you like me to help you, Gilligan?" And Gilligan says, "Yes." And then here's when they decide to just set it down on the. Skipper says, "Gilligan, do you think it's on the ground? It's on my foot." So they have to lift it again. So of course, that's such an old joke where it's on their foot. They lift it again so the skipper can get his foot out from under it.
And here, Gilligan, they have Gilligan lifted up. He will have dropped it, broke that tail fin right off.
Well, he lifted it, but he couldn't hold it up as long as the skipper could.
Yeah, but he wouldn't have been able to hold it up that long. He would have dropped it.
Yeah, you would think so, huh?
Because he's not even half the strength the skipper is. Just looking at him.
Oh yeah, he's much skinnier. And as you can see here, we have their camp. I guess you can call it camp here at nighttime. And it looks like they're doing really well. It looks like they have a little tiki bar going on there and a bunch of other things. So they're doing pretty good for themselves. And we hear snoring. Oh, this is Wrongway. This is Wrongway Feldman's camp.
Yeah.
Right. This is Wrongway Feldman's camp, and he's asleep.
Yeah.
And they're sleeping with his goggles on for some reason.
Yeah. Well, probably forced to habit, but also Resolute Germ says it's not even aluminum, so it would be lighter than it looks.
I know, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, at one point they were making them out of canvas. And that's why whenever the bad guys would shoot them up, the bullets would go right through them.
Yeah.
Or like a light wood. Okay, and now we have the first of the castaways coming up to try to entice Wrongway Feldman into taking them home. And Wrongway Feldman is just tired and he wants to sleep, probably from all that papaya juice, I imagine.
Yeah, because he didn't do much to fix it.
Oh, he sat around while everybody else did all the hard work, of course.
Yeah.
And here's where Ginger's trying to whisper sweet nothings in his ear. And she thinks that she has his attention for a moment. And here's where she's asking if she can get aboard the plane. And he says, "No, don't you have a hammock of your own?" And she realizes that he doesn't even understand what she's saying. So she's a little frustrated.
Yeah. And so, he rejects her going taking her along with her when she said she could sit on his lap because he knows that she's going to be complaining the whole trip about something poking her.
Right. And here's what she said. "Well, I didn't look. I didn't get a close look. But a lot of those biplanes had a rear seat. So that one may have had a rear seat. I should have gone back and looked at it."
He said it was a single seater.
He did? Okay.
He flat out said it's a single seater.
All right. And she says, "Can you take me back with you on the plane?" You're right. There. That's where he says it. No, it's a one-seater. And there it is. "Well, I'll sit on your lap." You're right. These days, can you imagine what they would do with that, right?
Oh yeah. You get the whole Weinstein feeling with this scene. You know,
right.
In order for me to do something for you, you gotta do something for me. Wink, wink.
Right. And he says, "Well, you can sit on my lap." And just when she thinks that she's getting one over on him, and she says, "Oh, my feet won't touch the pedals." And he says, "Oh, please, Wrongway. I just got to get back to Hollywood. My career will be ruined." Ooh, there she is, really laying it on thick.
Yeah. The germ says, "Got him drunk," and said in the movie started to butter him up.
And he goes right back to sleep. with a smile on his face. So all she did was give him something nice to dream about. And next, we have our next visitor, Mr. Howell, saying that he needs to get back. He needs to go back with them because otherwise his business will be a disaster. Vice President of Howell Aircraft Corporation. We're on the big board in UA. President with stock options. That's quite an offer.
What's
And here's
a
where
fringe benefit?
what's that?
What's a fringe benefit?
A fringe benefit, for example, is let's say I offer you a job and I say, I don't know, let's say you're chairman of the board and your salary every year is, let's say, $200,000. And then I'll say, as a fringe benefit, I'll throw in a limousine and a private airplane. So it's like a little extra icing on the top. So a fringe benefit's usually little extra benefits on the side that are not included with your salary.
Okay.
He tells him one final offer. A half interest. One of his offers is half interest of everything I've got. Can you imagine that? Definitely shows the desperation of Mr. Howell. It's not very often you'll see him offer something like that to anyone.
Ginger says Ginger was a fringe benefit.
Right, Ginger would be a fringe benefit. Maybe Mr. Howell is offering up Ginger as a fringe benefit.
If that's not a Weinstein count, I don't know what is.
And the biggest treasure ball that Mr. Howell has, I'll give you my own very own teddy bear. Mary offers it to Wrongway, and Wrongway takes the teddy bear and cuddles it. And Mr. Howell thinks, I've got him. I've got him. And then Mr. Howell realizes a man makes a fair offer in thieving. He realizes that Wrongway Feldman goes back to sleep and is snoring and really didn't listen to anything he was saying. And so here we are with the next day. And they've got the whole area cleared now. So now we know as far as bushes and trees and everything's been cleared around the plane. And they're all present to see him off and wish him luck.
Hey, now you kind of notice that the bolt's missing on the propeller right there. You think they will notice that?
I know, perhaps, right? Well, you wouldn't have noticed if you hadn't seen the episode, right?
I figured something was up. Because we're only 12 minutes in. I knew there was something up.
Well, what's interesting, too, is that propeller is going to come off here, which I know we're kind of jumping ahead of the gun. But that's the same thing that happens to the plane in that second movie I told you about. The front of the engine falls off. So it's almost exact what goes on here.
Okay.
And this is where they're wishing him luck. Good luck for Marianne. That's got to be good luck. And this is hilarious here, where he puts his arm around Marianne and he starts walking off, and the skipper has to pry Marianne out from under his arm. And he said, well, Lindy had sandwiches, referring to Lindenberg. I had to think for a second. Lindenberg. I heard a pop. Did somebody just come in? No, I thought somebody came in. I thought I heard a pop like somebody came into the stream. I guess they can't because I didn't put a link. I'm going to go ahead and put it. Bear with me, everybody. I'm going to put a link down in this panel. I normally do this, but I forgot before the stream, so I'm going to do that now. Also, I did put a poll in the chat if you guys would like to vote. So if you'd like to vote on which episode you like best, or if you don't like them, or if you do like them, feel free to vote. All right. Boy, my computer is so slow. There we go. So there is a link down there. If anybody would like to join us on the panel, feel free to. The door is always open, as I say. Okay, here we go. Now, And remember the fringe benefit, says Mr. Howell. And I don't think that Mr. Howell realized that. I don't think Wrongway Feldman heard what he was saying because he was too busy sleeping. And of course, Marianne says, when you get to Kansas, and Rachel says, when you get to Hollywood. God. Oh, my dogs, I could kill him. Just a second. Oh, well, I hope that at least lasts for 5 seconds. I have a roommate who got a dog just a few days ago. So now every time my dog hears the other dog, I get a little bit of noise in the background. So I apologize, everybody, for that. And Wrongway Feldman encouraged and tells them, we ain't more important than any of you. I know I'll be up there risking my life. Still, it's the team counts. So he's letting them know that he promises that if he makes it back to the mainland, he will send help for them. There's that pop again. Do you hear that pop when it comes in? Are you there?
Hello?
Hello, hello?
I had to switch my phone and it kept booting me out of StreamYard. So I'm trying to get my computer back on my computer here, but no, did I miss the scene with the shadow?
No.
No, okay.
No, we have not gotten to that part yet. And that's okay if you're having problems. I'll keep listening for when you pop back in. When you get your StreamYard.
I'll stay on my phone here, but I'll probably exit out of my phone as soon as I can get the computer working.
Okay, sounds good. So this is where they begin to start up the plane, and he's going to attempt to take off. And he's having Gilligan check the left and right wings, and Gilligan spins the propeller like they used to back in the old days. And as you can see, the ladies here are very excited. And Gilligan falls back. And this is the part where you can see the propeller. The bolt is missing on the front. So the propeller, unfortunately, falls to the ground.
Hey, I got a question. Wouldn't that propeller just go flying and break something else or shatter? Or are they going that fast?
Well, I don't know if there's anything around for it to break. You think maybe if it hit anything, it might trees or bushes. And it also doesn't help after, I guess.
Yeah, I'm still expecting it to snap off, though.
Oh, that's possible. So here we are later on that evening. And this is a scene that Gilligan referred to, or that Gorilla referred to. Sorry about that. Yeah. And of course, like I mentioned in the previous stream, this is also shot day for night. So this was shot during the daytime, and they turned down the exposure on the film to make it look like nighttime.
Yeah. Now the thing I wanted to mention. Yeah. Now the thing I wanted to mention with this here, though, is my kid looked at the shadow and go, "It's that one guy there. There wasn't it? I could tell by his shadow." he looked right at that shadow there, and this is a kid. He said he doesn't like the show because it's old, but he looked right at that and goes, "It's that airplane guy, ain't it?" He could tell by the shadow.
Well, I'm hoping your kid will eventually get used to black and white, even though it's black and white. And maybe he'll start appreciating things.
Well,
this is a good show.
I learned a trick with them. I actually learned a trick with them. Since it's
what's that?
It's about a 20-minute drive home from when I pick them up to the house there. So if I just put it on the cell phone clip there and pump the episode through the speakers there, because he gets so bored, he'll sit there and watch the episode because he's bored. If I did
to do it.
I told him he has to start.
Go ahead.
I just starting to get him. He thinks just because he doesn't like the graphics and how old it looks, he thinks he won't like shows.
Well, I've met a lot of people like that, and he'll come around. And Resolute Germ says, if you're still on when I get back, I'll try to join. That sounds good, Resolute. I recommend introduce your kid to the first season of I Dream of Jeannie. I think that'll help him come around as well. Because
Okay.
the first season was in black and white, and kids love it.
Alrighty.
What?
Okay. But here's the problem with that, though.
So here we have the shadow.
Yeah, I got a problem with that, though.
What's that?
I gotta like I Dream of Jeannie, though.
You don't like it?
I might have seen like an episode or two, and then I was like, this show's not for me, but I'll give it another try.
Well, put it down and try to watch it with your son. Start it from the beginning.
Okay.
Okay. And this is where the shadow is advancing towards the airplane. And there we are. We see the struts of the wings.
Yeah.
And somebody mysteriously happens to be cutting the struts. I wonder who it could possibly be.
Yeah, and he's going so slow with the saw, it would have not have cut that thing going that slow with the saw.
Well, it's a very thin piece of wood.
Yeah, but the teeth would just kept getting stuck going that slow. You know, I had to have that fast action to build up to stop the friction from stopping the saw.
Maybe he was doing that to be quiet.
Yeah, it still will snap the wood instead of giving it a clean cut. So, I don't know, that's just something I've observed with cutting wood and stuff. Of course, I don't have the patience to go that slow either.
No, I totally agree.
Alright.
So here we are with somebody mysteriously sawing with a hacksaw. And we cut to the next day, and the sun is rising. And there we are getting the plane ready to fly. This will be the second attempt. And everybody clear the runway. So Gilligan starts the propeller once again, contact, the engine sputters, and then begins running, and we're all very excited. And here's Reese just straight up. So if you're wondering about runway, obviously the plane needs a runway, but they're kind of hinting that it doesn't have much runway if he's saying I'm taking her straight up.
Yeah, is that even possible?
No, you've got to have somewhat of a runway. And as anybody can tell you, if you try to take a plane straight up, it's just going to stall.
Yeah.
But the thing is that just as he's getting ready to take off, he notices the strut that's been cut. So he shuts down the engine and he gets off and he falls. And they
he didn't cut. He didn't cut the engine. Gilligan had to cut it. Skipper yells at Gilligan to cut it.
Oh, that's right. Professor or Skipper tells Gilligan to reach in and turn off the engine. And this is where Wrongway Feldman tells them they notice that the strut has been cut. Here it is. They tell Gilligan at the motors, which Gilligan does. And this is where Mr. Howell jokes and says the first sign of trouble, and he bails out. And here's where he says they wouldn't have no control over the plane because of that strut that has been cut. You're right. Somebody's tampered with his strut. So they're looking around like who's done. Can you hear me okay when I talk?
You break up sometimes there, but other times it's good.
Yeah, but I don't break up. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. I wonder why it's doing that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, and they cut the strut too. Okay, and maybe there's someone else on the island we don't know about. Maybe one of you isn't so anxious to have me fly for help. Even though we can obviously tell a production, I'll tell that the arm and the saw belonged to Skipper. I mean, that was obviously Alan Hale's hand. He's the biggest guy on the island. And he had freckles. I met him. Like I said, I shook his hand. That's definitely Alan Hale's hand.
Yeah. This is where I had another nitpick with it. So even for generous there, say it's 5 5 weeks per one episode, or 1 week per episode. There, they've been with each other for approximately 5 weeks, if not longer. But yet they're like, they don't trust each other not to sabotage. They don't trust each other. Then they started passing accusations like, who would have done this? Like, it's obvious who it's been, because if you think about it, Wrongway Feldman there, he's kind of like Brooks was in Shawshank Redemption. He's been on that island because if you remember Brooks from Shawshank Redemption.
I only saw it once. I wasn't a fan of the movie.
Okay, Brooks, he was in prison for 50 years. He went in there, I believe when he was 19, and he got out after 50 years. And he couldn't live on his own. Like, they sent him to like a halfway house and got him a job in the grocery store. And he figured out he cannot live on the outside because for 50 years he got told when to get up, when to eat, when to start work, when to take a piss, when to go to bed, all that stuff. Here, and he figured out that's when he hung himself. This is where Wrongway Feldman. He's been on that island for 30 years. He's been isolated. He's institutionalized to the island where he doesn't feel like he can go back to civilization, and that's why he was sabotaging the plane.
Well, that's very possible too. I'm sure they probably were suspicious of him as well, and plus they all know they all want to get off the island. But I know we don't want to get too far off the topic, but what you brought up about the Shawshank Redemption is the reason why I did not like that movie. Is I like a lot of the classic prison movies, like The Birdman of Alcatraz, The Great Escape. I mean, a whole bunch. I used to watch a whole bunch of movies, and to me, the Shawshank Redemption was almost like a comedy. Because it's like they took all these cliches and tropes and dumped them into one movie.
Oh, I love the Shawshank
Redemption. A lot of people love the Shawshank Redemption.
I love the movie.
I didn't like it because I didn't. I know, but I didn't because it was a bunch of tropes all rolled up into one, and I like stuff a little more original. Okay, so say maybe one of you isn't so anxious to have me fly for help. And here's the girls are surprised. Now we know the girls didn't cut it. Obviously, that couldn't have been one of their hands. We all want to be rescued, and especially Ginger. Nobody's more anxious to be rescued than we are. That's right. We told our chauffeur to keep the motor going. And if you remember right, when I read that letter last week, that's one of the things that fan put in that letter was that Mr. Howell told the chauffeur to leave the motor running while he ran onto the boat to give Mrs. Howell what she had forgotten in the car. So that kind of falls into place there. Well, somebody sabotaged the plane. A couple of more minutes, I could have been killed. And then that's when they decided to stand a 24-hour guard around the plane. Except for Mr. Howell, of course. He doesn't do any kind of labor like that, of course. And here's where a reference back to the prior episode with the gun. So here's where they mention the gun, but Skipper reminds Gilligan there are no more bullets for the gun. So that is true. We've seen them use up the last of their bullets. And all their ammo was destroyed because of Gilligan's accidents. And of course, Gilligan says, don't worry, Skipper, I'll guard the plane, which should be enough to worry about there. And Skipper rigs up a bow and arrow. Don't let anyone near the plane, because we don't know who wrecked it, not anyone at all. I'll leave you in a couple of hours, little buddy. And I wonder how many of those little lamps there they had on board the SS Minnow.
Probably like 3. I guess around 3.
3 or 4. All right. And it doesn't make sense they would have him aboard the plane. Gilligan immediately hears some rustling, and he says, who is it? And Skipper saying, me. He says, me who? He says, okay, I know it's not me. And Gilligan still doesn't know who he is. Say something to Skipper would say, put down that bow and arrow you hit. That's the Skipper, all right.
I was surprised Gilligan didn't shoot the arrow.
I think he didn't, I guess, right?
Yeah, I was surprised he didn't.
Now, here's what I'm wondering where Wrongway is. And he seems to be missing. And here's what they're talking about. Wrongway Feldman. And Skipper Gilligan says that he went back to Wrongway's camp All he found was a scar. So now they decide to split up and go looking for Wrongway Feldman. The first thing they do is bump into each other, of course, as usual. And here's Gilligan looking through the woods, and Wrongway Feldman is on the other side of the woods, and they do basically going in and out of these bushes at the same time, and they don't see each other. I heard a pop. Are you coming back in? Let me see.
Yep, I'm back.
Hello, hello. Welcome back.
Yeah.
All right. Let me hide this so I don't block the subtitles. And here's Gilligan going through the bushes, and they bump into each other. So he definitely found Wrongway Feldman. Boy, sure am glad I found you. And now they thought there was kidnappers, and there were no kidnappers. And that's what Wrongway Feldman tells them, that he was just hiding. He says, "Can't you understand, Gilligan? I'm a coward." So he has doubts about getting up in the air. And there he is, where he admits it. "Sure, I'm the one who sabotaged that plane," he says. So what you were saying was right, Gorilla. And he says right here, "I loosened the propeller, I cut the struts." So he did the propeller and the struts. So that makes sense too, because he would have been the one to notice the bolt missing off the front of the propeller. And the rest of them did not notice because they weren't pilots or mechanics. And he just walked up with self-doubt. And he's decided that he's unable to fly the plane. And Gilligan's explaining to him, "But we thought you decided you were all ready to fly the plane." And here's where he's explaining how he's full of doubt and he's lost his confidence. And that he's probably better off being lost to the world. Did I hear a pop again? I keep hearing pops. Oh, we have another visitor. Welcome, Resolute Germ. Good to see you, Resolute. Welcome to the panel.
Good to see you.
Yeah.
And here we are with Wrongway Feldman says, "What about me? You can't teach me how to fly," says Gilligan. "And I can't take that plane right out of here. Handle a Crater Rickman KR-21? Crater Rickman? Gilligan, I always fly the wrong way. That's okay. You point me in one direction, and I'll go in the other." And then Wrongway Feldman says, "That just might work. And then we'll get started right away." So they decide that Wrongway Feldman is going to teach Gilligan how to fly a plane.
Yeah, why didn't you just teach, try to teach the professor how to fly?
Well, you think he would, right? In fact, matter of fact, it seems like Gilligan would be the last choice to teach how to fly a plane.
Yeah. And he didn't he wouldn't have had to teach the professor how to land. The professor could have just done a water landing in the harbor.
Well, you got to remember that plane's not built for that, so it would still sink.
Yeah, but it's open. He could just bail out and swim to shore.
Well, if he could get that plane off of the ground, then he could probably learn how to land it. Landing is probably easier. I think the hardest part might be to get it. Well, but it's also hard to get that thing off the ground if you don't know how to hit the speed just right. And this is where Wrongway Feldman says he decides that he wants to remain lost to the world and stay on the island. And here's where you can see Gilligan definitely admires him. He tells him whether you're doubtful or not, he still thinks you're a hero. And this is where Wrongway Feldman had ripped off his flight pin from his jacket, and Gilligan puts it back on, but unfortunately pokes him.
Yeah, would that pin be long enough to actually poke him like that?
Time passes with the guard watching the plane. What's that?
Well, would that pin even be long enough for him to poke him like that through all those layers?
Well, those pins, I used to wear them when I was in the Air Force. They're about a ½ inch. And if your clothes are thin enough, yes, they could. If you poked it in, yes.
Yeah, but that jacket looks pretty thick to me.
It looked pretty thick, but if you see, it was in tatters. So I think it's heavily worn because it's 30 years old. And if you pushed it hard enough, it would poke through the leather too, and straight to the skin. And Gilligan did kind of slam it pretty hard onto his chest. So here we have Skipper not doing a very good not doing a very good job of watching over the plane.
Yeah, and he
And
yelled
here's
at
noises.
Gilligan. Yeah, and he yelled at Gilligan on the episode that had my cousin in it for sleeping on guard duty.
Yes. Right. That right there is definitely a no-no if you're in the military and they catch you sleeping on duty. Oh my goodness. Don't let that happen to you, I guarantee you.
Oh, that's why
And-
Skipper's not in the Navy anymore.
Right. Well, he's old and retired, and right, so they're going to be lackadaisical, I think is the term. And Skipper's looking around for where the noise he heard. Here comes the professor, and the professor is here to relieve him. So it is now time.
Oh, all I was
What's
gonna say
that?
is he should have heard the professor walk up behind him like that. He should have been startled by like that.
Well, I don't know if you could hear the footsteps in the sand, but maybe rustling through the bushes.
Yeah. He should have known that it'd be about time
And-
for shift change.
Right. Well, he wasn't watching his clock or his watch. And here's where Skipper says, "Well, all is well so far." And there we go. Skipper's heading off to get some sleep, and it's time for the professor to take charge. And here we are, where Wrongway Feldman is teaching Gilligan how to fly using fruit. So here's giving him lessons. The banana is oil pressure. The papaya is the ignition. You got to keep your eyes on the instruments at all times. All right, now get ready for takeoff. First thing you do is you flip on the ignition. And Gilligan, I don't think quite gets the idea because he said I'm supposed to turn on the papaya instead of the coconut. And Gilligan grabs the wrong tool, of course. And he's shaking his leg, and Wrongway Feldman asks him what's wrong, and he says his foot's asleep. And Gilligan's all ready to go.
Yeah, if his foot's asleep from that, he'd never make it in flying back to civilization.
Well, if your foot's asleep, a lot of times that happens when it's not touching the ground. Because that's what I was thinking. They didn't show the ground. He might be sitting above the ground. But usually if your foot is on the ground while you're sitting, there's less chance of falling asleep. And plus, on that plane, you're using your foot constantly for the rudders. So there's less chance of your foot falling asleep on the plane. But on the ground, of course, he doesn't have any rudders or anything.
Yeah.
All right, and now they're going to try to go through it again. And you see Wrongway Feldman is wearing Gilligan's hat here, and he's still drinking his papaya juice. And what happened to the hat? Ooh, I just realized that. It went from Gilligan's hat on his head to his scarf around his head.
Well,
I
they
didn't notice
switched
that until
that.
now. I guess that's a continuity mistake.
Oh,
There's the hat over to the left of the lamp.
I guess I didn't notice that either.
Here he's wearing the hat. And in the next shot, the hat is over on the wooden post there next to the lamp. And he's got these scarf around his head. And here he's back there giving him instructions. Yes?
So they must have gone on like a lunch break or something. Came back and you wrapped up the scarf instead. Not thinking.
Very possible. And here is where Wrongway Feldman is telling him you're flying at an altitude of 30,000 feet. And I'm not like I said earlier, I'm not a pilot. But I think 30,000 feet, I don't think a biplane goes that high. Usually when planes go 30,000, usually when planes have to go 30,000 feet, you have to pressurize and have oxygen and all that because you can't breathe up that high.
Yeah,
I think airliner height.
Yeah, it's an airliner height.
I think it's supposed to be 5,000 feet, but we got Jake Stafford in the chat now. It says, "Great Scott, Gilligan."
Welcome, Jake Stafford. Good to see you.
All right, Jake.
Jack Stafford. Good to see you there.
Oh, Jack, that was close. Yeah, but at 30,000 feet, he'd be passing out from lack of
Here we
oxygen.
go. Here we are, keeping their instructions. Suddenly you encounter, this is what I was talking about earlier. If you're not a good pilot and you encounter headwinds or any kind of change of the winds, you better know how to handle that plane well.
Yeah, but 80-mile-an-hour headwinds, that sounds a bit much.
I don't know. You
I
never
think,
know. I can't tell you because I'm not a pilot. But up there in the sky, it sounds like it's feasible.
yeah, it just seems like it's a little over-exaggerated. It's because they over-exaggerate the height because the biplane, I bet you, averages probably around 5,000 to 10,000 feet. At the most, at 10,000.
Maybe they're doing this for the comedic effect.
I'm willing to bet they just ask someone at the airline and say, "Hey, how high does a plane go?" And they just told them how high the plane flying into Honolulu is.
Yeah,
And they filmed everything flew that high.
Yeah, Jack agrees with me.
I just looked it up. A biplane, the highest it goes, it averages around 11,000 feet.
Okay. Yeah, Jack Stafford said, yeah, you have to be pressurized over about 10,000 feet.
Okay, which totally makes sense. Yes. Thank you, Jack. And here's where, okay, Gilligan says, show me what to do. And now you're in a power drive, and here's where Gilligan totally messes it up.
Well, he did the loop, and then he did so he pushed forward, then he's going to dive, and then he just bails.
Right.
Why
At first
is he teaching him all these tricks?
Well, he says in case he runs into headwinds. But unfortunately, Gilligan puts the stick all the way forward, which would put it into a dive, and then he pulls it all the way back, which would take it into a stall straight up, which is confusing him, and that's why he's worried about a crash. And then that's when Gilligan jumps out and bails, which really may not be a good pilot. You may not be able to trust him under situations like that. The last thing you want is your pilot to bail, right?
Yeah. Why would you trust Gilligan in an aircraft? He'd already wrecked one boat on that island.
Well, that's supposedly the skipper wrecked the boat.
Yeah, I thought they would have taught the professor. You know, that would have made the most sense.
But this isn't the professor's island, is it?
No, the professor would have succeeded and gotten a naval ship there inside of 4 or 5 days.
So here we are the next day, and it looks like the professor did a good job of watching over the plane. And here's where Gilligan says, I'll stand guard now that it's getting light. And here's where the part where they're going to sneak Gilligan aboard the plane. So even after all that disaster from the night before, Gilligan is still going to make the attempt to fly that plane.
Wait, I got a question. Where was Mr. Howell's watch time?
That's what he said. Remember when they first mentioned the day before that they're going to have to take shifts? Mr. Howell says not a Howell, pretty much. If you'll see a running gag throughout this series, and even in the next episode, where Mr. Howell doesn't like doing work, and he'd be willing to put his wife up to do work before he does it himself.
Yeah.
And here's where he explains he has a very short runway, and don't worry about them trees, okay? Even though I think they would be worried about the trees, okay? And here's where he's going through, checking the instruments. And Gilligan seems fairly confident. But Gilligan says, first I need to go get a pineapple, a papaya, and a coconut. So Gilligan thinks that he needs those supply.
Yeah, because he trained with the fruit, so he doesn't remember because he wasn't training with the actual instruments.
Right, and he doesn't know how to make the connection of using the instruments instead of the fruit. And they heard the plane take off. And this is where they rush to the site. And as you can see, it's waking everybody up. It's early in the morning. And the Howell's complaining because getting so a man can't get any sleep around here.
Yeah. All right. I got two more nitpicks with this here that I remember so far. One is that plane would not have been able to take off because that sand would have been dragging it down and slowing it down to the point where it wouldn't be able to take off there. The sand would have been too soft for that plane to take off on.
I think that would depend on how strong the motor is. If that propeller can pull it fast enough, I think it would be able to do it. If it was in mud, probably not. But I think if the propeller was strong enough, it could get it off in his hand if he had enough runway. But like I said, I'm not
And
a
the plane
pilot.
should be light enough.
Yeah, that is
Yeah, but-
definitely a light.
Most likely be light enough to drag along the sand pretty easy.
Yeah, but it's still an awfully short runway for it to be dragging sand and trying to get the speed to get up in the air.
Right, and obviously, since all this was filmed aboard a set, we don't actually see a runway because they don't have room for that inside the sound stage, right? So we're kind of envisioning what the castaways are looking at.
Yeah, and then I'll mention my next Nick's pick in there. And Jack says they should have given it water skis.
Skids?
Yeah, skids, water skids.
Yeah, they could have done that. I don't know how well they'd work on sand, but they work good on water. And this is where I'm going to start packing right after breakfast. And this is where they say that Wrongway Feldman, they see that he made it up, he's up in the air.
Yeah.
And
Now
when they rush to go ahead.
keep going. Keep going.
When they rush to the scene, they see that Gilligan had been knocked out, apparently, by Wrongway Feldman. So Wrongway Feldman, realizing that Gilligan was unable to fly the plane, apparently punched him, knocked him out, and then took the plane. And, of course, this is Gilligan, so they're not going to show somebody punching Gilligan on camera. So he did get punched off camera.
Yeah. Now, what I was going to say here is you see Wrongway there doing all these fancy maneuvers, barrel rolls, doing loops and all that. That will burn up his...
Well, I don't think he's doing that intentionally. I think that's the joke, is that he's having trouble getting a handle of that plane because he hasn't flown in 30 years.
Yeah, but anyhow, that will burn up his fuel so much that he would not have made it back to civilization. He ran out of gas in the middle of the Pacific.
Well, those things were definitely limited in range, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that all that fancy maneuvering will eating up his fuel.
Okay, and here's where Gilligan's waking up, and the castaways are running to his side, saying what happened. And that's where they see that's Wrongway Feldman up there, and there he is. And he's giving them the thumbs up, saying that he made it up successfully. Unfortunately, he's having a little bit of trouble keeping it stable. And that's how they can tell it is Wrongway Feldman up there, is because Mr. Howell says, of course it is, can't you tell? And here's where they ask Gilligan what happened, and Gilligan explained. But there goes the bravest man I've ever known next to you, Skipper. And you can see the Skipper is very impressed with that. I think Skipper knows the bond between the two of them, because no matter what happens, Gilligan always loves Skipper.
Yeah. I think Gilligan still has a little brown on his nose, from the ass kissing there.
Well, the difference is with ass kissing, that's usually when you do it to somebody you don't like, and you're doing it to get a way up or get a promotion or to be treated with favors. I think Gilligan truly admired the Skipper.
Yeah,
and I think he saw him like
it might as well be his father.
Yeah, it's just a joke.
Yeah. As far as Gilligan knows, Skipper is his father.
Yeah, it's just a joke.
In fact, right. I would not be surprised if part of the even though they never mentioned it, I would not be surprised if they had brought up that Gilligan may have been like an orphan that did not have a father. Maybe that's why he looks up to the Skipper so much and he bonds with him.
Yeah. Okay, we got another chat from Jack. He said, "LO, I meant give it skids and put it in the lagoon and just let it exit stage left." That would make more sense.
Give it skids and put it on the lagoon and well, that's true, right? Well, you got to remember too. Here's the difference too. Wooden skids will allow it to land on something like a ground or whatever without wheels, but you have to have. I think they're called pontoons for an actual water airplane. Those are those things that are big and fat and they're full of air, and that's how the plane is able to sit on top of the water. So without pontoons, that plane would probably sink.
Yeah, I think that's what he's talking about. They might be called. I think they might be called skids.
Well, no, there's
But
two different things. There's two different things. They also have things that kind of look like skis that fit a plane. I've seen those too.
yeah,
But I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not a pilot.
yeah. Jack says yes. Bamboo pontoons. That's what I meant. So
Gotcha.
yeah, he was talking about pontoons there. He just didn't know
Okay.
what to call it.
Then they would have to start in the water because if it had the pontoons on it, it couldn't start in the sand because it obviously wouldn't go anywhere. So there's where they're watching Feldman and he takes off. And later they're listening on their AM radio, the news reports, and the announcer says that New York is welcoming Wrongway Feldman. So he made it to New York, which you think is
Well,
interesting because we always thought that the island was somewhere off Hawaii, but you never know,
well,
right?
no. He might have landed in Hawaii or somewhere in California, and then they flew him to New York
Very possible.
because that's where he's from. Is from Brooklyn there.
Yes. Maybe they gave him a ticker tape parade.
Yeah, they did. And hello, Captain Finity. Welcome. Yeah. So where's the Bay
Hey,
of
Captain
Naples
Finity,
at?
good to see you.
Where's the Bay of Naples at?
I'd have to look it up. But something tells me it's probably far away from his intended arrival point. So in honor of the most remarkable round-the-world flight in history, 33 and a half years from the day he left the Bronx, this is the announcer on the radio, Wrongway has told the authorities a strange story. So Wrongway Feldman does tell the authorities about the castaways, and he is honestly trying to help them.
Yeah. Hey.
And
all right,
Jill, hello there. Good to see you.
Okay. Yeah,
I gotta try to. Sorry, these are backwards.
Yeah, I just looked it up. The Bay of Naples is in Italy. So I guess it's fine. So the Bay of Naples is right next to Mount Vesuvius.
Oh, interesting. That would definitely be hopping all over the planet.
Yeah, you remember the Mount Vesuvius, the one that destroyed Pompeii, that they found all those people frozen in time.
Yes.
That's where that bay is.
Okay. And Jack
Yeah,
Stafford is hello, Captain Finity and anti-derivative Jill.
Yeah.
And here's where they say that Wrongway Feldman has shared the information with the authorities about the castaways. And the authorities have made every effort to investigate this possibility, so they do go searching out for the castaways. Unfortunately, Wrongway's calculations are so confused. The mysterious island could be located anywhere, and they're not able to be located, sadly. Between the Bay of Naples and the Arctic Ocean, it could be anywhere.
Yeah.
Right.
So they're the wrong oceans.
Right. So this is where they announced that it could. This is obviously another fantastic tale. So they don't even think that Wrongway Feldman. They think that he's hallucinating or imagining about the castaways at this point.
Yeah.
So that's why the castaways are very heartbroken. Here they are. They say they think that the story is created from Wrongway's vivid imagination. Wrongway Feldman is one of aviation's great heroes, and he will long be remembered for the great heritage he leaves us. And Skipper's comment here is, our great hero didn't leave as much. I got his wings, says Gilligan. And there's his wings, which Gilligan posts to his hat at the top. And that concludes this episode of Gilligan's Island, Wrongway Feldman. And by the way, Wrongway Feldman will make another appearance later on in the series. So this is the last we'll see of him.
Oh, does he?
There he is, special guest star Hans Conried. Yes, he does. I believe he'll make a second appearance. But next time will be in color, if I remember right.
Okay.
And anti-derivative Jill says, hi, Jack Stafford. Hey, Jack Stafford. And, okay, so that was episode 5 of Gilligan's Island. And next we'll be going on to Gilligan, Wrongway Feldman. And next we're going to be going on straight into episode 6 from season 1.
And I believe
And I
that's
gotta make sure
called President Gilligan.
Yes. This thing is such a pain. There we go. All right. Here we are back with our usual dock, and there's Gilligan preparing, and there they are headed out to sea. And as usual, the weather is getting rough, and there we are, the introduction to our cast. Unfortunately, we get and the rest. We don't get the Professor and Marianne until season 2. And here we are, another episode directed by the great Richard Donner from Superman, The Goonies, Lethal Weapon, among many others. And I know this is a little out of focus here, but here they are, they're digging. And what happens is Mr. Howell is playing golf. So Gilligan is helping him clear the way to make a green, I guess it would call, but here's it's sand.
Yeah, and see, that's where I'd have an issue if Mr. Howell refused to help dig the well, then he doesn't get any of the water.
Yeah, you would think, right? That's what I would ultimately tell him. But look at Mrs. Howell, even she looks a little shocked. I think even Mrs. Howell kind of wonders at some point. And of course, Mr. Howell uses money as markers on those poles. Of course, he can afford it. So it's probably like a $10, $1 bill, a $10 bill, a $20 bill, maybe to mark off feet.
I don't think they're golfing though. I think he was planning on building a giant. He was making plans to make a giant hut for him and Mrs. Howell because he mentions the powder room.
Oh, well, that's very possible. Oh, thank you. I have to turn the subtitles on again. Whenever I start a new episode, they don't come on automatically, so I have to activate them. Here we go, and subtitles, and now we're on episode 6. Now, there we go. And you don't want to get into trouble with the skipper, dear. You see, now this is exactly the way Mr. Howell seems to be agreeing. And of course, Mr. Howell reminds them that Gilligan is not a boy, but he's a man. But of course, they all continue ordering him around like a boy. And here they are mentioning the powder room business conference, right? So he wants a conference room as well, right? You got to have your conference room. Gilligan, will you get over there and start digging? Aye, aye, sir. That's right. So they're looking for a well, right? That's right. Okay, I forgot about that.
Yeah, but how does that work on? How would that work on islands if they're surrounded by salt water? How would they have fresh water on the island?
Their islands do have freshwater areas.
Yeah.
If you're lucky. Not all islands. Right. Not all islands, but you can, if you're lucky, find an area with fresh water. And if you don't, you want to build something that will catch the rain, obviously.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem right that it'd have fresh water when they're surrounded by salt water.
It is possible. Look at our country, America, right? We have plenty of fresh water. We're surrounded by salt water.
Yeah, but we're a big continent, though.
Well, there are islands that definitely have freshwater sources.
The Hawaiian Islands have freshwater sources all over the place.
Huh.
Here's where they argue over who's running the island. At sea, you're the... And on land, I'm chairman of the board. Do I have the right episode?
Yeah, this is the correct episode. Because this is where the professor comes and tells...
Okay, no, I am running the island.
That's when the professor tells him that he doesn't have... that no one's in charge because they didn't elect someone. That's when they decide to hold an election.
I watched the wrong episode. I don't know how, but I watched the wrong episode. Yes, I did.
Okay,
so I apologize, everybody. So I'll be discovering this along with the rest of you. So I'm going to need a little extra help from you, Gorilla.
Oh, don't worry. I just watched this right before Stranger Things. So, and Jack
I can't
says
believe I
from
watched the wrong episode. Go ahead.
yeah, and Jack says from pocket of rain in little lakes or underwater caverns. It rains nearly every day in the tropics. All that jungle, not a desert island.
Right, and that's another thing. All those plants are from freshwater sources. Those plants, they wouldn't thrive off salt water. And here's where we decide, why don't we vote? Like an election. And this is also something that I could see people on a desert island voting here who should be in charge. I could see this being a discussion that would come up.
I can see this
And of
going
course-
a lot worse than it does for them.
Right, and of
Okay.
course, the first thing Mr. Howell does is, like in real life, he thinks dollars will buy his way into a campaign, which is, of
Well,
course, the way it really is.
Well, first he says he'll spend millions on his campaign. Oh, never mind. I'll just buy the votes. Like deja vu. And ahoy there, Scotty R37. Welcome.
Hello, Scotty. Good to see you. Welcome. And there's Jill saying hello to Scotty. Well, I can't believe I watched the wrong episode. I wonder how I managed that. I apologize to everyone for that.
Well, I hope you at least watched a good episode.
And here they are debating. Oh, I did. It was the one where they found gold.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was even wondering then, I was like, well, what does that do with him being president? And it's like, duh, I should have realized I was watching the wrong episode. Okay, so here they are, and we're cutting to the next day. And here they decide they're going to hold an election.
Yeah.
And Mr. Howell's wearing his best clothing, of course.
Yeah. And Jack says 1964 was on election year, so topical. LOL.
This is also, remember, the year that Kennedy was assassinated, so he had to be replaced with the vice president.
Yeah. Okay, here they're saying they're going to get this over with. Skipper says he's pretty much, I'm ready whenever you are. Mr. Howell wants to make a nice, like a dirty election. I think they're trying to send some kind of subtle message with this, without actually making a subtle message.
Like Ginger on Wrongway Feldman's lap. And here's where they're arguing even before they can start their election, of course. Smoke-filled hut. I don't think anybody smokes on the island, but oh well, right? But my learned opponent thinks, for example, of slum clearance. So this is where Mr. Howell obviously sees himself much above the rest of the people on the island, of course.
Well, what he's making a joke is, like, he's talking about the slums, this and this. Like, he brought up 3 issues that are probably prominent in that time for, like, actual elections. And they're like, nobody's going to talk about that. He goes, Lovey would.
Right. Levy's apparently a liberal, apparently, is what they're saying, a Democrat.
I don't know what the issues were back. I don't know what the politics were back in the 60s, so I can't.
Not much different than today.
Yeah, and Scotty
Politics
says
doesn't
he's
really
a heavy
change.
smoker. Yeah.
And Scotty says, I'm a heavy smoker. Yeah, it doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat, they're always going to mention the poor for those votes. So it doesn't matter if it's 1900, 1950, 1960, or 2022. They're always going to mention slums, the poor, the starving, and the weak because they want those votes. And that's the only reason why they mention them. It's not like they actually do anything to change anything because, as we all seen, nothing changes. They just say that to get the vote.
Well, Jill, it was news
Okay,
to
here we
me. Jill was asking if it's news to anybody. It was news to me.
Is that news to anyone? Right.
That's okay.
I'm sure
really,
that
still
for everybody.
good.
I'm sure for everybody it was news for the first time at some point. But then after the first few elections, you start realizing, wait a minute, am I hearing the same thing over and over? Are things not getting any better? And here's where the probably closest we'll ever see with Skipper and Mr. Howell almost coming to fisticuffs, which we know they won't. And the professor's pulling them apart. And of course, like they're arguing. And here it is with his pompous speech.
Yeah.
The fragile shoulders of our gallant captain. Of course, first he's going to do is compliment the captain.
Oh wait, I think he's bringing up like the past episodes were there with that there where he's talking like the sleepless night and stuff like that when he was sleepwalking and stuff like that.
He is. If I remember right, here's where he's practicing his speech, right? With Lovey?
Yeah.
Okay. And it looks like she's helping him write his speech. She's got her little glasses out there. And by the way, in real life, Natalie Schaefer actually did carry around a pair of glasses like that. So some of the reunion shows later on, they'd ask her to pull them out, and she would.
Yeah. And here they blame him for the shipwreck and all that. And he's ridden in guilt at the loss of the transmitter, which that was Gilligan's fault. And according to Jack, he's doing Roosevelt impersonations.
There we are.
And Jill said that's true.
Yep, it certainly is. And Mr. Howell is filled with shame about his lack of qualities of leadership, which was his mother's fault. Now he's blaming it all on his mother. So blaming the family history, of course, that's not anything new.
Yeah.
One who is brave, true, loyal, devoted, and faithful.
And people wonder why I didn't run for office.
Oh, you gotta be able to line the right pockets. I'll put it that way.
No, I just don't want shit getting brought up from my past to use as crap against me.
Oh, well, that doesn't matter these days. If we've all seen, if you're powerful enough, you can bury anything. I mean, look at our current president. So, and here's where the skipper is.
Republican, no one cares.
Right, and here's where the skipper is apparently practicing his speech. And I say to you, don't change leaders in mid-ocean. Of course, he's going to be using nautical terms. Like me. Excuse me a moment. I had to clear my throat. The man who's first at sea, on land, and so on, pontificating. And here's they're getting their hopes up high. And Gilligan tells the skipper he thinks he can really do it. And skipper thinks, you think so, Gilligan?
Yeah.
And I think he's comparing him to George Washington. And he says, no, Gilligan, I was talking about me. So skipper looks a little upset, a little disappointed.
Okay, Scotty said, I would make out with not Schaefer. Maybe I'm over amorous, whatever the hell that means. And Jack says Skipper is doing in Eisenhower.
Yeah, what's funny is this was the 1960s. So all these names that were thrown around, people then, they all knew that. These days, we would be saying, well, they're comparing themselves to the Clinton or Ronald Reagan or Bush or Obama.
They're not saying enough ums to be Obama.
Enough ums?
Yeah. Yeah, if you ever... Yeah, I've listened to enough. I've listened to enough Obama speech and all that. We actually made a drinking game out of every time he says take a shot. Oh God, those are some nasty hangovers.
President need a new liver.
Usually, the only time that someone says is when they're trying to think of what to say. Did I just hear a pop? Hold on,
That's
guys.
what Obama was doing. He was trying to avoid going into
hello,
racist rants.
Hey, Skipper.
Good to see you, Scotty. How are you?
I am well. I adore this television show.
It's great, isn't it?
It makes me feel so happy. You know what? It's one of those things, and you and I do. We talk about Star Trek. this is one of those shows where it's about a group of people who get together, and no matter what they do, they have to make it so that everything is better for everyone. And even when they frustrate one another, they are all right. Let's move past that. I love this show. It is so good, so funny. I watched it as a kid, and I think it's adorable. I think that the characters are relatable, and the women, foxy.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Well, men were men and women were women, as they say, right?
Well, okay, but here, I don't know if you guys have addressed this particular question. Ginger or Marianne?
Marianne.
Why choose?
Oh,
Take
why
them
not
both.
both? Why not both? I like that answer better.
I know. I like that small town country girl right there.
Just a lonely girl living on Gilligan's Island. Yeah, no, I'm a Marianne
Yeah,
man
the
myself.
actress.
No,
Dawn
wait, hang
Wells,
on a
the
second.
actress who played Mary.
It's yes.
Well, I was just going to say, by the way, she was a former Miss Arizona. That's where she was from. But yeah, she
Oh.
received. She received.
Mary Wells was from Arizona.
Yes, Dawn Wells.
Wow.
She received
Dawn.
a way more fan mail than the other characters, and that did make Tina Louise jealous.
Mm-hmm. That is understandable.
And Jill says amorous means he loves to love, and Jack Stafford says, yeah, this was the same year of the Civil
Hi,
Rights
Jill.
Act, pivotal time for American viewers. And then Jill says Marianne. And Jack Stafford
Jill's
says
a
Marianne.
Marianne woman. All right.
She's a Marianne. She knows. Marianne,
She
she's
knows.
nicer and relatable and from the Midwest. Exactly, right? Well, like I said earlier, she's the type. Between Marianne and Ginger, Marianne's the one you'd want to take home to mom.
Well, I put it this way. Marianne's the one you want to take home to mom. Ginger's the one you want to take home to dad so you can get the knuckle punch. Like the bump fist.
Oh,
Marianne
okay.
is the girl that you want to take to a nice isolated beach. But then she's like, yeah, we're here. Can we fix the boat?
Well, I think another difference, too, is if you have Ginger, you better have a lot of money to keep her happy.
Well, exactly. Well, I
Relatable.
don't. And I don't. So I'm
Well,
going with the poor option. It's not that Marianne is hotter. It's just that I'm too poor for Ginger.
That's pretty much it. She looks like she'd be much higher maintenance, I guess, is how they put it.
No, but I do. No, and seriously, if I were to objectify Marianne, I would say she is the right height for me. She has all the curves where I like them to be. And yeah, brunettes. What could I say? I'm a sucker.
Yep.
Alrighty.
And both of them, Marianne and Ginger, that was their natural hair color, so they definitely didn't dye or wear any wigs for this.
Okay.
Unfortunately, Dawn Wells is dead, so it would be necrophilia. And Tina Louise is still alive, but she wouldn't touch me with a 10-foot pole.
No, I think Tina Louise is a little past her prime as well.
Yeah, I know. I would like to hold her hand, though.
It'd be nice to meet her, but she doesn't do meet and greets for Gilligan's Island, unfortunately.
Well, yeah, I don't even... What else was she in?
God's Little Acre, a fantastic movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was made before Gilligan's Island. And after Gilligan's Island, I saw her in a few TV movies. I saw one movie about a woman's prison, and she was like an evil, cruel female guard. And that was probably about mid-70s when I saw that.
That sounds hot.
And
Don't get Scotty going with that type of talk.
Yeah, exactly.
well, she was playing a tough prison guard, so she didn't have the makeup on like this. I remember I was watching.
I can only get so
about halfway through the movie. All right, so and here's where the discussing with Skipper, and Gilligan says because you're the skipper and you'll threaten them, and Skipper says, "Yeah, I know, but that won't work." Yeah, but Skipper's not going to threaten anybody, and you can't use fear to win over unless you're living in a dictatorship, which we are in California. But that's another story.
Well, now
But
that you mention it, I never realized how good of a captain the skipper is.
He's very loyal, he's very faithful, and he's very brave. And he never hesitate to put his life on the line for anybody else.
And I apologize for coughing. I live in Canada, and I was having some perfectly legal products.
Yeah. All right.
But the skipper is not a mean guy. Jonas Grumby is not a mean guy. He's a disciplinarian.
I think he's more like a big bear. He's like a big teddy bear.
But he beats Gilligan.
Well, he hits him with his hat on top of the head. He doesn't really beat him. I would say Mr. Howell beats him more than anybody else.
You know what? It's been a while since I've seen the show. I don't know how abusive Mr. Howell is.
Yeah, because before this, I accidentally watched the wrong episode where they discovered gold, and Mr. Howell took a few whacks at Gilligan with his golf club.
Well, sounds like that.
And the most I've ever seen Skipper ever do is just take his hat off and hit Gilligan on the top of the head with a hat.
Yeah, okay, let's say you're a direct superior over someone that you work with, and you're wearing a hat. Let's say it's a business hat. Would you be able to take your hat off and hit your coworker with it?
Nope.
Yeah, we do it all the time.
That's why you got fired.
Well, not if you wear a hard hat.
No, I got fired for sticking my hand where it didn't belong.
Oh, did you apologize to her?
No, she liked it. That's why they both left and got married.
Just kidding, Gorilla. Just kidding.
Yeah, why that's the first comment everybody says is that's there. I know I got my hand stuck in a machine.
Okay.
Oh.
Well, good thing you didn't lose any fingers, right?
Well, I would have been. We thought I broke my wrist there, but I didn't. So that's how I got. If I had broken my wrist, they wouldn't have been able to fire me.
You see, the last time I got a job at a warehouse, I ended up showing up and there was a bandsaw, but there was this big name tag on it that said Cheryl. And I was like, so what's with why did you name the bandsaw Cheryl? And it was like, everybody who's ever fisted Cheryl has not returned to this job. Ooh. And I was like, ooh. So, yeah, what the moral of the story is, if you go to this job, don't fist Cheryl. And not a funny story, just a random thought. I was a lefty. I had to learn how to write with my right hand.
Yeah, ambidextrous. My sister had to do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know what? Playing Halo is so hard now.
I wanted to bring up Jack Stafford's comment. He says, Marianne wasn't poor. Her family had a big ranch in Kansas, probably with oil. Actually, they were middle class, not a lot of money. Marianne, the reason why she's on the island is because she won a contest. That's
right. I forgot about that.
Right. That's the only way she was able to afford it. She thought she was going to come to the island. She thought she was going to go to a resort and marry a man and everything like that.
Well, why was the professor there?
He thought he was heading to a conference.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. He thought he was going. Okay. So it was a shuttlecraft for him.
Right. It was a shuttle off to a big conference / resort that the Howells partially owned.
Right, and obviously the millionaire and his wife were there on a pleasure cruise. Gilligan and the skipper were there, and the movie star. Why was Tina Louise? Why was Ginger there?
She was there because she had booked some nights at the resort to perform.
Well, and everything went asunder.
If you're interested, on our last week's stream, at the beginning of it, I read the history of it, what brought them together. From Bob Denver's website.
You have a channel?
And it goes more into detail. Yeah, it's very vague and old. Most people don't know about it, but it's still there.
Yeah, fair enough.
And Anti-Derivative Jill says that shows her strong work ethic and independence. She didn't have to work in that pet store. Absolutely, I agree. Jack Stafford says her family probably raised the animals for the pet store chain on her ranch. That's another thing too. She was probably good with animals.
Was it a pet store? I thought it was a grocery store.
Did they mention the store? What kind?
Yeah, I thought it was a grocery store.
And Jack Stafford says Skippy is strict and principled. It's very likely. And Skippy Law, I meant Skipper. That's okay. I think we know who you meant.
Well, Skippy was a kangaroo, and Skipper was a seal? I don't know.
I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Well,
Yeah.
Skippy was an Australian icon, a kangaroo, but Skipper, I'm not sure.
Right.
Welcome, Captain Infinity. How are you? Aren't we busy tonight?
Yeah,
And
can
Captain, as soon as he got here. I hope you
Yeah.
can come back, Captain, if you can hear me.
All right, let's keep going with the episode here. It's getting to be 11:30, or close to 11:30.
Oh, were you guys talking about a Gilligan's Island episode? I'm sorry.
Yeah,
At some point, I guess.
yeah.
So here's where they're debating how Skipper's going to run for president.
Yeah, Gilligan likes to be yelled at and threatened. You know, he has that. I guess he has a shaming kink.
Bob
Hello
Hale
again,
is such
Captain
an expressive
Kennedy.
actor.
Yes.
He's
Hello
here.
again,
He'll
Captain
talk.
Kennedy. I hope you're doing well. And you're right, Bob Hale, Alan Hale Jr., yes, and he looked almost identical
My
to
mistake.
his dad. That's okay. He looked
No.
almost identical to his dad. In fact, that little pinky ring that I mentioned in earlier episodes used to belong to his dad before he passed away. So that's why you'll see Alan Hale Jr. wearing that pinky ring and everything he did. That was his tribute to his dad.
Like, you just have to appreciate the earnesty of the performances in this show.
They actually enjoyed playing it, and they also considered themselves a family.
Mhm.
Even off screen, even when they weren't shooting, they were very close. They ate lunch together and everything. It was really interesting. I don't know
Well,
if it was because of the isolation of the set or the way it was filmed, but they really bonded more than most other cast members on other TV shows.
Well, and I hate to derail the conversation. Like, no, I don't. But I really enjoy Gilligan's Island simply because it feels like a family. I like this.
agree there,
This
yeah.
is comfort food for me.
Right. When I was a kid, this was like a second family as well. Well, this and Star Trek, that was my two families, I guess. away
Yeah.
from my family.
Totally. Same category.
Yeah.
Like this, Star Trek and Get Smart.
Oh yeah, Get Smart is something I'd love to cover.
But
Unfortunately, a lot of
no.
people are not aware of Get Smart, and they're not even aware of Bond movies. So I think if I tried to cover it, most people wouldn't understand most of the jokes. Unfortunately,
Have you seen my coverage of James Bond movies with Kat?
I don't believe so.
You
I
should
do love
check it
James
out.
Bond.
Yeah, no, we did, like, Kat and I over on the Phantasmagorium channel, we did a whole review of, like, all of the James Bond movies. I'm sober for some of them.
Have you ever seen
but
Matt Helm movies with D. Martin?
No, I have not. Have you ever seen the Our Man Flint?
Yep.
Yeah. But I've
Uh,
never seen the
yeah.
Matt Helm.
Matt Helm was like a comedy version of James Bond, starring
So was
D. Martin.
so
Like
was
I said,
Our Man Flint.
Yes, but I think Our Man Flint goes back before James Bond, doesn't it?
This is
Wrong.
no, it doesn't. This
It
is a Gilligan's Island show, right?
Yeah. Okay, so here
I
we are.
really-
them talking-
Bob
ahead.
Denver is one of the most engaging comedic actors that I've ever seen, and I think I appreciated comedy because of him.
Well, not only that though, but he was much older than what he portrayed, and he was in real life a very, very intelligent man. He was very well read. He was a father. He drove around in a convertible Corvette. He liked to speed and race around. His wife was a very beautiful woman named Dreama, and Alan Hale's wife was named Trinket.
Did you ever see Dobie Gillis
Yep, I've seen some scenes where he played Maynard.
Well, he was sort of the Jughead on Dobie Gillis show.
Yeah, I think he
Right.
was an inspiration for Jughead in the comics.
Oh, I don't know the publication date of the Archie comic. But
Back
no,
Helen-
Bob Denver has always been, I think, really well, and typecast, obviously. He wouldn't be able to escape Gilligan's Island at all, ever. But
Right.
I think that he was a really good comedic actor.
He was. That's what got him the role here. When he had the interview with Sherwood Schwartz for the role, Sherwood Schwartz said, "Yeah, I've seen you in Dobie Gillis, but what makes you a good Gilligan?" And Bob Denver said, "I can do the physical stunts," and that's what got him the job.
Oh. Okay. How far along on the episode are you guys?
We were at 5 minutes and 30 seconds. Unfortunately, we have another 20 minutes to go. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Well, no. It's fine. It's fine. This is going to be a 4-hour stream about Gilligan's Island, but
I know, but I can't keep it late because Gorilla is stars ahead of me. So,
but I
he's
have
gotta
a
work early in the
question.
morning.
Yeah, but I have a question.
All right.
If you were to recast Gilligan's Island today with modern actors, who, pray tell, would play who? Herc,
Nobody.
you go first.
Herc? Who's Herc? Sorry.
I don't know. Gorilla, you go first.
I don't
All right,
know.
go ahead, Gorilla.
I don't know who I choose. I'm too tired for that.
Is Paul Sorvino still alive?
Just passed away just a few weeks ago, unfortunately.
Damn it, he would have been a great skipper.
Well, I think at some point, maybe 2 decades ago, even John Goodman may have been able to.
Yes. Oh, I think he still could. But
No. Look what he did to Fred Flintstone. What's that, Resolute?
yeah, but all right.
Before he lost all the weight, John Goodman's pretty skinny now.
But he did a terrible Fred Flintstone. I remember when they cast him as Fred Flintstone, I was excited. And then when I saw the movie, I was like, oh my God, what was I thinking?
Tim Dillon as the skipper.
I'm not sure who that is.
Fair enough. That's a good answer. Let's ask Herc.
But the thing is I can't think of any current actors who do physical comedy. So that's what makes it difficult for me. Even Natalie Schaefer, being 65 years old on this show, did her own stunts. And I can't think of any 65-year-old actors that would do that.
I would take, here's who I would take as the millionaire's wife. I'm going to go with, what's her name? You know, the lady from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Susan Sarandon?
Yes.
Uh,
That's the millionaire's wife.
okay.
And the millionaire would have to be played by...
Why not get Barry Bostwick, who played Brad?
Is Barry Bostwick still alive?
Yes, he is.
Then I'd take Barry Bostwick. Yeah, sure. I'm fine with that.
Well, they did have chemistry together, I guess.
Marianne would be play Ana de Armas. I think that the movie star would be Charlize Theron. The professor would be played by John Hamm.
I don't know who that is.
You don't know who John Hamm is? Watch my channel from time.
I know what green eggs and ham is.
Yeah, so do I. So does John Hamm. And then I would say the skipper and Gilligan. Who would I take as Gilligan? A modern Gilligan.
Do you know who was up for the
That's
role
tough.
before Alan Hale got it?
Who?
Carol O'Connor.
Makes sense. They were looking for a type.
Right. Well, here's exactly what happened. Is Carol O'Connor did read the part. We're talking about Archie Bunker, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Carol O'Connor did read for the part. But
Carol
when
O'Connor is a man, by the way. Carol used to be a man's name.
Well, so was Marianne and a few others, and Leslie.
Yeah, name a dude who is named Marianne. Move on.
Yeah. John Wayne's name was
Marianne.
Marianne.
Who was Marianne? Marianne, very different from Marianne.
Right, but Carol O'Connor
I'm sorry
read
for
the
yelling.
part.
I'm sorry for you.
Oh no, I didn't think you were yelling. But Carol O'Connor did read for the part among several other people. But the thing that Sherwood Schwartz was looking for, here's why Carol O'Connor did not get the role, and why Alan Hale Jr. did is Sherwood Schwartz could not find the fine line of somebody who's upset at Gilligan, but did not seem angry or abusive, and that's what
Right.
was so hard that he couldn't find until he met Alan Hale. And the way
You
he met Alan
monkey
Hale,
nut idiot is what like no, you have to be. It's like training a puppy. The level of restraint and yet discipline that the skipper provided towards Gilligan, I think, was an incredible balance and comedically done perfectly.
yes, I agree
You can
with
tell
that.
me to shut up whenever you want.
I'm not gonna tell you what it is. Shut up. That's rude.
Well, can I be the asshole and ask us to get back to the episode here? So,
Yeah, I'm going to leave
Okay.
so you guys can talk about the episode. I'm obviously interrupting things, but thank you so much for letting me play.
And Captain, I hope you can hear us. I know Captain being very quiet. I hope you're enjoying yourself, Captain. So here they are getting ready for the skipper's speech, attempting to run for president.
yeah, can you take Jack's chat off so I can read the subtitles?
How's that?
Yep, great, good.
Interesting. Jack Stafford says Lady Gaga is Ginger. That's an interesting statement. Okay, so it looks like Skipper's all ready to butter up the girls like a typical politician would do. So
Yeah,
he's got some flowers.
yeah, buttering them up with some poison flowers.
Poison flowers.
Yeah, those flowers are poisonous.
And they
Those
do
flowers
look
are
similar to
plastic.
oleanders, which are poisonous.
And Captain Finney thinks it's his microphone.
Oh, it's okay. We're patient, Captain. If you can come back, that'd be one. You're still welcome. And that he's and it makes sense. Skipper would not know the plants as well, but the professor does know botany.
Yeah, but I think they'd be poisonous to eat, not poisonous to touch, because he wouldn't have been able to hold.
You can get poison from smelling plants.
Yeah, but as long as he was holding on there, the poison would have been affect him already.
I don't know if they're poisonous to the touch.
Yeah, I think they're poisonous
like-
to eat, not poisonous to touch.
Right, and there's or possibly poisonous by smell if you smell them too much. So it looks like Ginger recognized them.
Yeah, because she was probably going to try to make makeup out of it.
And it looks like Mr. Howell is trying to dress himself down to look more like an everyday man here in this episode. And it's not very often you'll see him with glasses. And of course, he's talking salary already and making her a secretary. So the first thing he's going to do is bribe like a true politician. Well, in that case, 100,000. Of course, to him, money is no object. And there we are back with the fringe benefits again, right? You're always going to hear about fringe benefits from Mr. Howell.
Yeah, he was trying to pay her $50,000. Then he said, "Oh, just make it since she was a clerk instead of a secretary, make that $100,000."
Right, with fringe benefits.
And
And
here he
here-
tries. And here
Right.
he's taking the exact opposite approach with Ginger, where Ginger would take a bribe, but he was trying to suck up to her and all that.
Exactly.
And welcome, Pleasant Valley Pickers.
Ooh, I'm skipping a whole bunch of chats. I feel terrible.
No,
All right. Eric Stone Street as a skipper. I'm not familiar with who that is. Gilligan may have accepted Gilligan's Island, but Bob Denver never could. And Anna Derivative Jill says nobody created a new family of characters with different names and a show with a different title, but still the same premise. Yeah, I agree, Jill. I agree. And there's the Captain Finney. I may as well type it here as I can't get a word in edgewise on the panel. I'm sorry, Captain. You're allowed to talk. I hope we didn't seem like we were talking over you. I don't want anybody to feel like they're being talked over on my.
You didn't have
stream,
the
so-
ability. His mic wasn't working.
Well, please come back to the panel, Captain. You're welcome anytime. And I apologize
It
for
would
any
be
inconvenience.
pointless. He doesn't have a mic.
He
said
said
his
that he
mic
was
wasn't
being talked over. Okay.
He thought he was, but his mic wasn't working.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for clearing that up. And Jack Stafford says Ryan Reynolds as the professor.
I wouldn't have picked him as a professor.
And Jack Stafford says yes, he liked the idea of Sarandon as Lovey. Jack Stafford says I like Jack Black as Mr. Howell. Well, that's an interesting.
I don't like Jack Black.
Jack Black would have been a better Gilligan.
I like Jack Black in his earlier movies. I'm not a big fan of him now.
I'd like Jack Black as a washed-up corpse.
And I drew Jill says Sam I am. And Jack Stafford says Ezra would have been a good Ezra.
Ugh.
Jack Stafford says Carol Connor is a legend. Yes, he is. I even saw his, well, I wouldn't say gravesite, but I saw his urn. He's in a little cove at the cemetery where he's at, where they keep a lot of celebrities, and they had this, it was a glass-in area, and you could look from a distance and see all these urns, and I saw the one with Carol O'Connor in it. And I'd read Jill says, a boy named Sue, how do you do? Jack Stafford says, Natalie Portman is Mary Ann. That's different. No, Natalie Portman isn't nearly as good as Dawn Wells. Not good looking, I mean.
Natalie Portman nowhere near this.
No, she didn't have the beauty.
Portman, especially as Mary Ann. Mary Ann's supposed to be cute. Natalie Portman was always homely.
How about not redo a show that's already great?
That's what I say. And we've been very lucky so far. And there you are. You're right about this here, Resolute. Captain Finnish says maybe my microphone wasn't working. I do encourage you, Captain, if you can get it working, please come back. And Jack Stafford says, oh, I miss Scotty and Captain already. Same here. And you don't have to leave, Scotty. And Captain Finity says, me too. Jack Stafford says, Captain Finity, I never heard your voice. No, not here. And I do like to hear his voice. And I Derivative Jill says, yeah, I was thinking, I didn't even hear you trying to say anything, Captain. And Captain says, all good. My microphone is normally perfect, so I don't know what to fix.
Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't hear him
And
try to
Jack
say
Stafford says, only Spock can get poisoned. That's why a couple times I asked him if he was okay or if he wanted to say anything. Jack Stafford says, only Spock can get poisoned from smelling plant spores. LOL. And Pleasant Valley Picker, hello, PvP. Good to see you. Alan Hale Jr. was great. Hey, little buddy. And Pleasant Valley Picker, CA says, well, don't touch Poison Ivy. Exactly. I'll call him PvP. Jack Stafford says, Pleasant Valley Picker, member of the Harper Valley PTA. Jack Stafford, nope, been far too long. And Jack Stafford says, PvP, lol, just a similar cadence and tone. Great movie and show. And PvP says, I haven't seen the show in about 10 years, too. Couldn't add much to the discussion. That's fine, as long as you're here. And I hope you enjoy yourself. I hope you do get a chance to catch up with this show. I highly recommend it. Jack Stafford says, Jack Black as Mr. Howell because of his role in the Jurassic movies. Jack Black was in the Jurassic movies? Or do you mean King Kong?
Jumanji, man.
Okay. He was in the Jumanji movie? Oh, I
The
don't
new
know.
one. The new one.
Oh,
The
okay.
remake.
He is in the Rock Jumanji movies.
Okay.
And
Jack
even
Stafford
Jack
says,
Black
no.
couldn't kill those movies.
And there he is.
That's
He
the
says,
power
no, I
of the
meant
Rock
Jack.
to knock off his power. Get
Well, he
dead weight
didn't
like
do so
Jack
well with
Black
Jim.
and it's still.
The Rock's not perfect. Remember now, Disney's Jungle Cruise lost a lot of money. And looks like Black Adam's not going to do as well as they were hoped. Jack Stafford says, no, I meant Jack Black in Jumanji movies. Makes him a decent Mr. Howell. And PvP says, I bought the DVDs on sale at Walmart and binge watched the series in like a month. Oh, very cool. Jack Stafford says, Marianne has been the hardest. Zoe Deschanel. I don't know who that is. Sorry. Deschanel.
She was on that Fox series, whatever. I can't remember his name. She's the sort of one that tries to be funny, but not obnoxious funny like most of the female comics.
Which ones aren't these days? Yeah. Pleasant Valley Picker says, another reason not on tonight, my headset is nearly dead and mic unreliable. Oh, that's not good to hear. I hope you can get that corrected, sir. So here we are back to Mr. Howell attempting to bribe poor Ginger as she's trying to take a shower.
Yeah.
And Ginger says, everybody says I've got an open mind. And of course, he's going to say what rich men always say: I'm a very wealthy and important man, hoping that's going to influence. And only Mr. Howell could say, as a matter of fact, I'm thinking of buying Hollywood.
Yeah, see, he's trying to promise her all these different roles and stuff.
Of course.
Can you take Pleasant Valley Pickers chat off?
Yes, yep, thank you. There we go.
Yeah, he's promising a star on her dressing room door.
Right. I mean, Mr. President. So she's already falling for it. Looks like she's swooning. And here comes Gilligan. And here's where she's going to lay it on to Gilligan, of course. And we all know how Gilligan reacts to that. And there's Gilligan like a deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
And here's where he says, no, I'm campaigning for the skipper. Because she was trying to convince him into voting for Mr. Howell. Come closer, Gilligan. And look at Gilligan, of course, against the tree as usual. And would you do me an extra special favor? And there it is with that finger kiss again. And he looks like he's in danger of his life. And before she can give it to him, he, of course, passes out and he heads straight to the ground to take a nap. And hopefully those are different flowers in Skipper's mouth this time around.
Yeah, hopefully. Even though it looks like the same thing.
It does look like it's probably the same thing. And it probably, like was mentioned earlier, they're probably plastic or wax. And we got his campaign sign, don't change skippers.
Now, I got a question. Why are they out in the middle of the lagoon with the sign?
Well, that's just it. I watched the wrong episode accidentally, but did they explain why they went out to the lagoon? Is he having Gilligan hang that on that tree?
I don't know. They fall off before they can explain anything.
Are they on a raft?
They're on a piece of wood.
Gotcha. Thank you. Because, yeah, this is the first time I remember seeing a big tree that's hanging out in the middle of the lagoon.
Yeah, but it still doesn't make sense that they're out there.
I think he was looking. Yeah, there's a piece of wood. Maybe he's looking at the lagoon like an entrance to the island, and he wants his sign there advertising in case they have visitors, which we know they won't get. And there's Gilligan waiting to the side of the lagoon and onto the shore. I wanted to mention something here, too, that something Bob Denver mentions in interviews later on, is when they shot this show, like I said, this whole lagoon, it was a set, and it was basically made in a parking lot of the studio. Right beyond that row of trees back there is the actual Hollywood freeway. So you could hear cars and horns during rush hour. They weren't able to film during rush hour because of the noise. When they filled this lagoon up, this fake lagoon with water, they never cleaned the water, and it got really bad over the 3 seasons. And Bob Denver said he really did not like getting in the water. The more they made him get in the water, he said it was cold, it was murky, it was green, and it was really nasty. So that's one thing about the water that a lot of us on the watching the show didn't realize, since it's not really seawater. It was basically a big man-made pond, but they did not filter the water, so it just got more stagnant over the 3 years. And here's Gilligan coming back over to the skipper again.
Yeah,
there it is,
yeah,
skipper Gilligan walking on the water, right?
Well, he's walking on some boards there. Then he missed steps there and knocks Skipper into the water after Skipper told him watch where he's walking.
Well, did they say there was boards under there, or did they just make it? Could you just tell by looking?
Gilligan said something.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you. And here's where Skipper says, Gilligan, you can't just walk on the water. See? And of course, what does Gilligan have to do? Of course, he's going to mess things up, and he's going to trip and knock both of them into the water. And there we are. I want to mention this is the middle of a transition. So if you guys are wondering, why does this look strange? This is the middle of a transition is all. An edit. And here's Mr. Howell talking to Gilligan. And Gilligan says, have I ever thought, what about myself? And Mr. Howell says, what you want to be in life. Here we are, Mr. Howell, trying to butter up Gilligan, because he knows Gilligan is the skipper's campaign manager. But as you see, Gilligan is very loyal to the skipper. Maybe someday I'll be a junior petty officer. And of course, Mr. Howell says, Gilligan, how would you like to be Secretary of the Navy? Oh, goodness. I don't think that'd be a good idea for us. But these days, he's probably more qualified than who we actually have, anyway. And of course, that excites Gilligan, and his eyes widen up. And of course, Mr. Howell says, "You're just being honest." And his shoes are untied, I guess. And here's where Mr. Howell says he'll just have somebody do the work for him. And now we need an able-bodied seaman. Here comes one now, of course. So speaking of the skipper. And here we are with him winking at Gilligan, trying to get a sly over on the skipper, which is not going to work. What I mean is when I am president. He's already overconfident as it is. And here's where Skipper says Gilligan is going to be sick. And as you can see, I don't think that Skipper thinks that Gilligan is qualified for the job either. Rightly so. Well, why aren't you laughing, Gilligan? I was thinking how nice it would be. Oh, poor Gilligan.
Yeah, oh, that's beautiful. I was going to say, the comment was, I don't know if I could be Secretary of Navy. I don't even know how to tie a knot. He goes, we'll get some low-level officer to tie your knots for you. Speaking of a low-level officer, that's when Skipper comes in.
Right. And he's going to... Yeah, the first thing he says is his running mate or opponent.
Yeah.
All right. And here we are. They have an actual election booth up here, which it looks like it's a converted shower.
Yeah,
right, because it still has that bucket for the water.
Yeah. And every ballot has their initials on it, so they know who's voting for who.
Right. 7 pieces of paper have been initialed by all 7 of us. So each one of them will put their initial down on a piece of paper.
Yep.
And these are the official ballots.
Yeah, and Skipper butters them up by telling them that ladies first. They never started arguing on who goes first, but Mr. Howell made a comment goes, I can't remember what Mr. Howell said, but I'm pretty sure it'll pop up.
Okay. Because what you write on your ballot counts. Now, who wants to vote first? Women and children first. That's what I stand for, says the skipper. Who would let children vote? So I guess they mentioned children at some point.
Yeah, he said, because Skipper said women and children first, and Mr. Howell plays goal. That's the kind of man you want as president, a man who lets children vote.
Right, because they're not 18. And okay, Ginger, you're next. So this is Ginger's turn to vote. And Mr. Howell's trying to butter up again, saying a star is born.
Inside joke. Because Skipper asked what that was all about.
Right, and as you can see, Skipper enters the voting booth to cast his vote. And Skipper comes out excited and tells Gilligan to go ahead and next. Before you do, I want you to think about it. All the things that I've done for you. And there he is trying to influence the vote, which is illegal. Not to mention morally wrong. Now, think about it. Maybe you better not think about all those things. Now, on second thought, right, all the times I was mean to you.
Yeah.
I mean, once you pull that cord, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Howell reminding him of their previous conversation. There's Gilligan as he pulls the string, but unfortunately he pulls the wrong string.
Yeah.
And I'm taking it that's the ballot box.
Yep.
And now they're all excited. They can't wait to find out the news. And Gilligan is shivering from being wet. And he says, I'll be all right in a minute. Now the first ballot is for Gilligan. And Gilligan is excited and says, yay.
No, it's for Skipper.
It's
Second,
Skipper.
yeah. First ballot was for Skipper. Second one was for Mr. Howell. Third one was for Skipper. Fourth one was for Mr. Howell. The fifth one was for Gilligan. The second one was for Gilligan. And the third one was for Gilligan.
Got it. Here we are. The fifth ballot is a write-in vote for. Let me see that. Let me see that. Well, that's Lovey's handwriting. Oh, how could she? Voting against her own husband.
Yeah, but she goes, you run enough stuff. Maybe you can not take down the honeymoon you promised me.
All right. Of course, Mrs. Howell's got the memory like an elephant. That's it. There it is. You let somebody else run everything. Then we could have that honeymoon. Why, you romantic schemer, you. And Mr. Howell seems to be content. Vote is tied at 2-2, says the professor. Well, I hardly think it's necessary. The sixth ballot.
Well, that's because she said, and one for Gilligan goes, and that's when the professor said, I don't think that's necessary.
Right. And now we're on the sixth ballot, which is for Gilligan. We have one ballot to go because there are 7 castaways. So the vote still stands at 2 votes and 2 write-in votes for Gilligan. The deciding vote and last one is missing. But yeah, I've got it right here. It says Gilligan, I believe, right? Isn't our ballot box good enough for you? That means that I win. So Gilligan was the last one, right? I'm sorry, gentlemen. Well, then who is president? Gilligan?
Yeah, he voted for himself.
He voted for himself, which is totally legal. I'm sure the skipper voted for himself, and Mr. Howell voted for himself.
Yeah.
As you can see, Gilligan is more surprised than anybody that he won. And of course, the first thing that's going to happen is he's going to start taking over his duties as president of the island. And he's cleaning up the White House, which is their version of the White House. And Skipper says, I don't know. Look, Skipper, I didn't mean to win the election. And he's really having to apologize to the Skipper.
The Skipper tells him not to apologize.
Well, shouldn't the Skipper be telling him that you shouldn't be cleaning up the White House? I'll do it. You're the president, after all.
Yeah, he's offering his congratulations.
Right. Which is very honorable. And whether it's right or wrong, he doesn't necessarily agree with it, but he says we're stuck with it. And here's where they're going over counting the votes again, trying to make sure they did it right. And here they say, if I didn't give you a word of warning, what is that in Skipper's hand? Oh, that's the flowers, okay. The power seekers. Here's where he's warning him. Men who'll seek you out call themselves friends. So he's telling himself the danger of influences if you're the president. These men are dangerous. And as he warns them, look who we have looking through the window there. And notice Mr. Howell's dressed in dark, like a bad guy. That's where I come in. That's part of my job as second in command. So Skipper is obviously the vice president, apparently.
He assumes he is.
He assumes he is, right. Since he didn't make it as president. I can't tell you who these men are, but I think he has suspicions. I just stopped by to offer you my heartiest congratulations on your rather shocking victory. Yes, well, the way I look at it, could have been worse. And here's where they're trying to butter him up to see who can be in his Oval Office, pretty much. So it looks like Mr. Howell and Skipper are not done competing. And of course, Mr. Howell here, here's a small but terribly expensive donation, I guess, probably. You see their solid gold cufflinks. Oh, how nice. You'll have to have your wrists pierced right, like they don't go through clothing.
And that comes up later.
Now you notice here, Mr. Howell is shockingly dressed, very simple. This is like an everyman suit. So you can tell he's definitely dressed down, trying to win the part, just like a politician does. You'll see them out there dressed like an everyman, saying, I'm just like you, give me your vote. So that is definitely an old tactic that they still use. I offer my services to whatever high office the president might designate. The leader's wish is but my command. Well, then, here. And here's where they're arguing over who's the vice president, because Gilligan hasn't told them who he's decided yet. But Skipper figures he is because he got here first. And here's where they're asking him, but I think Gilligan's torn between the two of them because I think he admires them both. And here's where the very clear, obvious of a bribe is where Mr. Howell says, well, I expect to get something in return, which means it was not a gift in the first place. And he said, do you know how to make a good knot? Skipper, what kind of job can we give Mr. Howell? Because they find out that Mr. Howell really doesn't have many skills. He's never actually done any physical labor. Well, you could be one of the secretaries, Mr. Howell. I don't think Mr. Howell likes the sound of being called a secretary.
No, he becomes like a Supreme Court justice or some.
Chief Justice, like right. There it is.
Or he's a judicial secretary of justice or something like that. Oh, Chief Justice.
Right, Chief Justice. But that's a very important position. Have you had any legal experience? And he says, the government has convicted me 6 times on antitrust suits. Of course. And I've been investigated every year for income tax evasion. Go ahead, Gorilla.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say.
Notice how he looks very proud. And of course, Gilligan doesn't understand what any of that means.
Anything, those are good things to be charged with. Fucking over the government.
Right, but Gilligan doesn't understand that those are all illegal things. So he says, oh, well, that's good enough for me. How about you, Skipper? So Gilligan's actually impressed by that. And Skipper agrees they got to know something about the law, which Skipper does not. Now, the first thing on my agenda is to investigate a plot to overthrow the government. And here's where they have them listening.
Pleasant Valley Pickers? Those aren't secretaries. Those are interns.
Mm-hmm.
And Dr. Stafford said Howell is dressed as a prime minister. And PvP says, I make Marianne and Ginger my secretaries. I totally agree. But remember now, these days, a secretary can be a man. Yeah, even back then, a secretary could be a man. Secretary of State, Secretary of the Navy, those were men back then. The one I started right after the election on Luau.
Yeah.
And here they are speaking that evening, and they still don't look quite happy or satisfied.
No.
And here's what they're saying: his dedication to duty. Go ahead.
He makes everybody part of his own government there. Like professors in charge of like science, and I can't remember what the other 3 jobs were as secretaries or something.
Well, see, I think which is a very good point what they're doing here, and this is something that reflects on modern day, is he's giving everybody important positions. And as they say, when everybody's special, nobody's special. And I think that's what they're starting to see, and that's why they're disappointed, because they all wanted to be positioned higher than the rest of the people on the island. But when Gilligan is giving them all equal status, then nobody's really that special. The new generation can learn a lot from that. Our President Gilligan, yes, Mr. President, bravo, bravo. Speech. So here's what they want, his acceptance speech. And Gilligan states, I accept the responsibility that you've given me. And Marianne comes in, come on, everybody, eat please while it's still hot.
Yeah,
that's okay, folks.
He keeps getting interrupted as he's trying to say his speech.
Exactly, right? So are they really taking him seriously? And that does look like a delicious dinner, I do have to say. So they don't have any problem with starving on the island. Let's just say, if you were on that island for 15 years, you better get used to seafood and fruit. That's all you're going to get. And here's where Gilligan's looking for his notes. And he says, I just jotted down. It was right here a minute ago. And it looks like Mr. Howell. What's that?
I was going to say Mr. Howell has them.
Yeah, it looks like Mr. Howell's using them as a napkin, perhaps. I think it's my speech. And, of course, Mr. Howell's playing dumb. Like he didn't realize what he was doing. And, oh, would you pass me that guava sauce? Shot a bit, please. Ooh, a shot. I wonder if that's alcoholic.
Probably
And
not.
Gilligan's trying to read his speech, but they're having him hand food and everything over to between people and interrupting him again. And Mrs. Howell looks a little worried, like that's going to end up falling in her lap. Well, now down to the important business. Gilligan says, as you all know, our water supply is getting short, which is where we started at the beginning of this episode. Oh, I wish I knew who cooked. I wish who knew who cooked these jellied sand dabs. That's an interesting term. Oh, they're delicious. You'd believe you were at Antoine's. We're apparently referring to a restaurant. Now, about the jellied sand. Now, look, folks, so here we are arguing again. I figure we can dig that well in one day, and nobody's listening to him, of course. They're all talking about the food. They don't want to talk about working because why? They're all important. They're all special. So none of them have to work anymore. So they don't want to hear about work. This is the best meal I've had. I've got to take a walk. I'm guessing he means to walk off the meal. And here they are talking and talking over Gilligan, not paying any attention to him. And Gilligan's still trying to get their attention, and it's not doing any good. And they're all leaving the table. And Gilligan continues, I think it's necessary that you should find out, but it's too late. They're gone. And Gilligan back into the Oval Office. And he has his conch shell that he looks like he's drinking from. Or is he... Gorilla, does he blow into that and make a noise, or is he drinking from it? Because I didn't watch this episode.
I can't remember.
All right. We'll find out soon enough, I'm sure. So Gilligan's lonely in the Oval Office, and here comes Mrs. Howell, who apparently is his secretary. And she's all studious and ready, and she even has reading glasses. And notice she's also dressed down for the job, too. She's in a very simple dress. But she's still got that big fancy diamond ring, so she's not, only going to go so far. And it's almost after 4 o'clock. And apparently they're having trouble with the oil drum. I wish I would have watched this. I feel really bad. Gorilla, if there's any you can fill us in on, please do so.
Yeah, well, this scene wasn't it. She's just being secretary there. That's nothing much.
Okay, so she's giving him the notes for the day. Thank you. And here she's telling him about his schedule. Well, there's nothing in the morning. But in the afternoon, what time is my cabinet meeting? The vice president canceled it, so we better talk to the vice president. Where's the rest of my cabinet? Oh, they're all swimming in the lagoon. So it doesn't sound like they're taking their job seriously.
Yeah.
And I don't know who she asked about, but he says, good, what's she doing? Well, somebody's got to dig that well. And Gilligan says, you're absolutely right. And I'm guessing he stuck his hand in the ink accidentally.
Yeah.
And here we are with Skipper bringing in items. All right. I'm trying to hush my dogs up. And Skipper says, I've been worried about you. You've got enough to worry about, which is terrible. But Gilligan, never mind that. Now, does this look like the office of a vice president? It is beneath our dignity, isn't it? Right. So the first thing the Skipper does is hand Gilligan all the work and expect him to carry everything, of course. And there we go, Gilligan, and he hands Gilligan all the weight.
You know, Gilligan could order the skipper to carry it now.
Yeah, you would think, right? That's the first thing you do is you give him an order, but I think he feels intimidated by him.
Yeah.
I got an idea, yeah. Would you bring this back over and put it on this wall? Yeah, I think Skipper is doing this intentionally to make Gilligan not want to be in charge. So I think he's trying to talk him out of it. And here's where Skipper is trying to influence his decision on the well. And what are you going to do? Oh, and of course, Gilligan drops everything on the Skipper's foot once again. And it looks like the Skipper wants to hit Gilligan with his hat, but Gilligan heads out of the hut before that can happen.
Yeah, Gilligan runs out.
Right. And here's we are with Gilligan waking up Mr. Howell. And Mr. Howell, of course, has Teddy as usual.
Yeah, I'm going to have
and
to get
apparently
going.
he makes it.
So,
Well, thank you for being here, Resolute.
Yeah, good night,
thanks for having
Resolute.
me up, and I'll see you guys later.
Take it easy. Well, I'm missing a lot of chats here too. I feel bad. I'm sorry, everybody.
Yeah, but we gotta kind of rush this. It's midnight.
Oh yeah, okay, yes. And my dogs are going crazy. Okay, so here's where he wakes Mr. Howell. And Mr. Howell, as you can see, is not doing any work whatsoever. And Mr. Howell is trying to make it sound like he's been laying there making decisions when in reality he's been sleeping.
Yeah.
And what he's doing is he's making a word salad that Gilligan cannot understand. The municipal court upheld a previous ruling and found for the defendant. And even after the case was appealed, in spite of the new evidence, I've taken all that into consideration and I decided to give it a little more thought and go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Which served only to confuse Gilligan. And here's Gilligan saying, I hate to barge in like this. I went to see the vice president first, and I went to see the chief justice of the Supreme Court. I mean, in the case of Fletcher and Bronson. So I was hoping there was something you could do. And of course, he's speaking to Ginger, and she says, well, let me see. And of course, nothing is free. Ginger wants something in return. And she tries to give Gilligan a kiss with her finger. And of course, he hits his head against the post and passes out once again. And there is with her exasperated look, which we will see later on in the series a few more times, where they break that third wall.
Now, you think Marianne would help?
Yeah, she's usually willing to help.
Yeah.
Okay, and Gilligan, I'm going to make this meeting as short as possible, unless the will is finished. That's very true, Mr. President. We certainly do need a will. And we're behind you all the way, Mr. President. Of course, except for Mr. Howell. Notice he's standing there with his drink in hand. Thanks, Ginger. On my dressing room door. Well, then how about help me dig the well? So as we see, Gilligan ends up digging the well anyway, even though he's supposed to be president. And I'm in the midst of settling a strike. Of course, the first thing you have are your unions going on strike. And the Secretary of Health and Welfare apparently aren't doing their jobs.
Yeah,
and
that'd
Ginger
be,
proclaims, well, I'm not on strike. What's that?
Ginger's the Secretary of Health. She's gonna go off and say, "Let's build some I gotta go build some hospitals." Blah blah blah. We don't even have doctors. Well, I'm gonna build a medical school also. And then Mr. Howell says he got some legal stuff he has to do. And Professor says, "I have some science stuff I have to do." And Marianne makes some excuse also. Yeah.
Bear with me here for a second, guys. There, I'm going to see if that helps. Okay, and Ginger says, well, I'm not on strike. How can I wash the dishes and build a hospital? And you're right. Here's where Gilligan says, we don't even have a doctor. And well, I'm going to build a medical school, and I'm involved in a very serious judicial matter. And Gilligan says, what are you working on now, Mr. Howell? And Mr. Howell, well, what, you're trying to impeach the president? So they're already talking about impeaching Gilligan, even though he's doing all the work.
Yeah, because Gilligan took a bribe.
Because Gilligan took a bribe from Mr. Howell. And Mr. Howell wants to impeach him, of course. What is that's a snake? Well, he accepted a bribe from a power-mad favor seeker. I gave him a pair of solid gold cufflinks. So he's framed Gilligan. That's a pretty serious charge, Mr. Howell, says the skipper. I happen to have 5 of them. I was the only one in the room. Aha, there you are. Thank you very much. I'm going to call you as a witness at the impeachment proceedings. And of course, impeachment, we hear about that all the time, too, in the current day and age. That's doing such a good job for... Oh, nonsense. There's no water down there. So this is when they realize that they're digging a dry well. And here's where Gilligan says, you don't have to impeach me. And guess what happens? They discover water. And looks like they're very excited and very happy. And that's good for us, the audience, knowing they have they have fresh water and food, so no one's going to go anywhere. And I don't know why Mary Ann has her hair in a bun, but hey, maybe that's just for this shot, right? Notice Marianne. Take a look at this on the left, very far left. That's Marianne sitting there. And I'm wondering, is that really Marianne or is that a stunt woman with a wig? Because in the
I
next
can't
shot, look at her hair. Hey, you never know, right? So later that evening, and then the next day, we're at the table. President Gilligan would like to say a few words. First of all, I wanted to thank you, and now that we've solved the water problem, I think we ought to get to work on our next project. Lookout tower. A lookout tower, that's an excellent idea, Mr. President. We mean a high-rise sort of thing. Of course, Mr. Howell is thinking a high-rise, skyscraper type thing. And Gilligan says, if we build a real tall lookout tower, and we'd be rescued. And they all shout in agreement, which is a good idea, actually. And he says, well, I'm glad you all like the idea. I have the bamboo poles and vines right there.
So they cut
Now I
them
have
all.
to go. Right, he cut them all. And now here's where they all start coming up with excuses. No, I have to go, Mr. President. Supreme Court decisions can't wait, you know. Of course, Mr. Howell's the first one to bail. And of course, Mrs. Howell says, oh, and I have to go and take dictation, of course. And of course, now we have another apology. I'm sorry, Mr. President. And there goes the professor. And
'cause he
Marianne.
has to go do his science thing.
Right. And then there goes Marianne. Apparently, she doesn't want to do the work either. And Ginger, as he's starting to ask her, Ginger, do you? And Ginger's out of there fast. Apparently, she doesn't want to do any work either. So now it's down to Skipper and Gilligan. And Gilligan says, Skipper, do you think? And Skipper says, you've done some wonderful things for the island. Oh, I sure hope I can get reelected, says Gilligan. Aha, do a good job, Gilligan. And the Skipper leaves. Gilligan by himself with nothing but a handful of wonderful ideas and no one to help him. And we fade out and we reach the end of this episode.
All right, now time to catch up on some chat.
All right, I'll try to make this fast. I know it's late for you. Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine.
And I'll try not to skip over anybody. There we go. I think this is somewhere we left off. I'd make Marianne and Ginger my secretaries. And PvP says, law, well, they could be interns too. And Jack Stafford says, Ryan. Nope, I didn't mean that. And Jack Stafford says, I don't think secretaries exist anymore in the office sense. I had an executive secretary for a while. She just fields her phone calls away from me. That's the kind of job I'd like to have. And PvP says, well, isn't there an old saying in politics, keep your friends close and your enemies closer? Yes, absolutely there is. PvP says, wouldn't there be wildlife too? Yes, very likely. Birds, says PvP. And Jack Stafford says, whoa, sorry for drunk commenting. No problem, Jack. PvP says, not sure if I'd eat seagull stew, though. No, that doesn't sound too good. And Jack Stafford says, Last Supper as a reference when they were eating. And Jack says, don't miss the Last Supper allegory with Gilligan as Jesus. So true, so true. And all the people he trusted the most pretty much stabbed him in the back. Wow, those are trippy glasses. I think he may be referring to Mr. Howell, possibly.
Mrs. Howell. No,
Howell?
those are Lovey's reading glasses when she was in Gilligan's hut.
In the
Or
secretary.
the White House, yeah.
Right. And Jack Stafford says, Gilligan is the most innocent. You've missed several of the deeper society religious comments meant in this episode. I know, and I'm sorry. That's one reason why I really didn't like the time slot of the stream. It starts late, so I feel like I'm having to rush through it, and people aren't able to stick around. So I'm going to change it. So I'm letting everybody know now that, yeah, I'm not going to keep this time slot. I'm going to be moving it. So we'll let everybody know if and when we decide on a different day or time. And PvP says, wow, boxes of foodstuffs. And Jack Stafford says, Gilligan will be betrayed by a friend. Yeah, unfortunately, right? PvP says, if they had vegetable seeds, they could grow veggies. Well, that's true. PvP says, didn't have a garden eventually. I forgot. Well, I think they have their fruit. They is what PvP says. And Jack Stafford says, then can we take a break and come back rather than overlooking everything? I guess, but how do you take a break during a live stream? I'm not sure. And Jack Stafford, you're always willing If there's anything that you think we're overlooking or we're not mentioning, please mention it in the chat and we'll bring it up on the panel. And Jack Stafford says, Ginger as Mary Magdalene. Come on, guys. Yeah, especially this episode. I felt like we had to really, because we were doing so much chatting off topic that once we actually talked about the episode, I felt like we were skipping through it and missing a lot. And PvP says, I ain't kissing no fingers. Too many nicer things to kiss. Oh, that's true. Jack says, whoa, slow down. Don't dismiss the show just because someone is tired. Better do a part 2. And PvP says, by the way, did they have any medications? Good thing they didn't get really ill. Mr. Howell had a whole suitcase full of medication, as he established in an earlier episode. Jack Stafford says, Howell as Pontius Pilate. Get it? Yes. I do understand. And Jack Stafford says, the blood of Gilligan. And Jack says, can you go back to the dinner table scene? Oh, I feel bad. I can't now. I'm so sorry. And PvP says, Lookout Tower, how about repairing the damn boat? Oh, okay, series needs 3 seasons. I get it. And it's all a great flood analogy. Well, that is true too, Jack. It's not that late. Who can't stay up at midnight changing into a pumpkin? Well, good old Gorilla, he has to work early in the morning, and this is very late for him. So I feel really bad. My apologies, Gorilla.
Yeah, Jack, I have to get up early in the morning, feed me and feed my kid, get him off to school, then I have to get to work.
Well, Jack does say, I'm over it now. Didn't know you would read our chats. Now, I do try to cover all the chats. And like I said, I'm going to, and especially when I found out that Doomcock is streaming on Wednesdays, yeah, we're going to have to change this show. If possible, if we can get our schedules to align. It was very hard for us just to get this time slot on Wednesdays, so I don't know. So I don't know if the future of this stream is going to hold out or not. It depends. We'll have to see what happens. But I would like to thank everybody who came and visited and stopped by. Jack Stafford. I know LDG was here. And I know Anti-Derivative Jill was here. And I know Resolute Germ was here. And PvP was here. And we know definitely Order Greg was here. And we know Gorilla, thank goodness my co-host was here. I'm trying to go through the chats here as quick as possible. I apologize talking so fast. And Captain Finity, please come back if you figure out what's going on with your microphone. And I did have a poll. I'll try to mention that really quick if I can before you run out of time. I asked for people to vote on what their favorite Gilligan's Island is. I'm not going to show the poll because we're running out of time. What's that?
You forgot Scotty.
Nope. Scotty R37. Yes. Thank you, Scotty. He was here for a while too. Thank you. I was afraid I was going to miss somebody. I feel terrible.
And Hakeem was here for a little bit.
Right, Hakeem was here. Thank you. If you guys liked the stream, even though with the off topic, and I know kind of a little ran over time, but if you would please sub, hit the like button and the notification button, and give us a thumbs up if you liked it. And the poll, let me go over the poll here real quick. I'm not going to share it on screen because I know that we're running out of time here, but I will say, which episode did you enjoy them?
Go ahead
What's
and
that?
share it. Go ahead and share it.
Hold on.
I got time. Well, it won't take that long. And while you're sharing that, I can plug myself there. Tomorrow,
Go for
actually, Jack, you might like this. We are reviewing the very first episode of The Waltons called The Founding or The Fondling or something like that, where they find the deaf girl. Then on Saturday, we're watching Babylon 5 and doing a live react. Then on Sunday, we are watching The Time for our second movie in our H.G. Wells month. We are watching The Time Machine from 1960.
Oh, very cool. Okay, so which episode did you enjoy the most? We got Wrongway. I don't know. 5 votes total. Vote equal. We got 40% of the votes. President getting 20%, and I am so happy to hear the episodes. So I'm really good. Even though I did a terrible job of hosting tonight, I apologize for that.
And Pleasant Valley said, "Thank you for
I'm
making
getting
him
behind the
rich."
chat again. It is my pleasure there. And somehow I got way back in the chat again.
No, you're not.
And PvP says, I haven't seen the show that.
Oh, maybe you are. I don't know.
Yeah, when I went to show the other screen, I don't know why, but it took me way back up to these old ones. Yeah, now we're talking about the votes.
Jack Stafford, we were watching it and doing a live react on my channel called Gorilla's Random Thoughts there. Then I'll have a Cosby Room set up in the panel link.
Yes. So if you enjoy that, yeah, tune in to Gorilla's Random Thoughts channel. And here we are. Howell's dressed as a prime minister. And PvP, I'd make Marianne Ginger my secretaries. There we go. And PvP says, lol, they could be interns too. Yeah, I wouldn't complain about that. And Jack Stafford says, I don't think secretary. Yeah, we covered that. Sorry. Wildlife, birds, drunk commenting, Last Supper. Jack says, then we can take a break and come back and rather. I will try. I'll do my best. Ginger's Mary Magdalene. Come on, guys. Yeah, I think for future episodes, we need to try to stick more on topic if we can, I guess. PvP says, I ain't kissing no fingers. And Jack Stepper says, well, we'll slow down. Don't this. I'm really sorry about trying to hurry this up. And look out, Tara. How about, it's all great flood analogy. Yes, okay. I'm trying to get caught up. Sorry, guys. It's not that late. Who can't stay up? The pumpkin. There we go. I'm over it now. Didn't know you would read our chats now. And PvP, I work early too, so need to eat and get some sleep in 2 hours. Wow. And Jack says, and now I feel like don't feel like a jerk. You're fine, Jack. And PvP says, anyway, it was fine to chat and relax. Yes, we enjoyed you guys being here as well. Euler Greg says, later, Gators. Well, later, Euler, and thank you again for stopping by. Yeah, and Jack Stafford says, yes, I haven't been so engaged in the topic for some time. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed yourself, regardless of my horrible presentation skills. Jack Stafford says, been subbed, added, notified. This is fun brain food. Well, thank you, Jack. Euler Greg says, cool, Jack. And PvP says, and thanks for making me a wrench pop culture. It is my pleasure. Thank you for helping me out on my channel. Jack says, where is the Babylon Fine thing? Neck got choppy. There we go. I think you talked about that, Gorilla, right?
Yep, I did. I mentioned that.
Thank you. And Pop Culture did a great job, but just lots of people wanting to chime in, which is a great thing. Yes, it is, and I appreciate that. And I do welcome everybody chatting. And I'd like to get people up on the panel. I don't want anyone to feel like that they were being rushed or that I was being rude or trying to talk over them. I try to give everybody equal time. PvP says, yes, way back. PvP says, yes, sometimes chat jumps. And Jack Stafford says, can someone link Gorilla? I don't think I have it somehow.
Here, I'll get it.
All right. Let me know if you can't, and I'll do it. And Jack Stafford says, I don't want to miss any Babylon 5 conversation.
The Babylon 5, we were just starting season 3 on Saturday. It'll be season 1 or season 3, episode 1. But those ones fun. So you're always welcome to come on the panel and talk about the episodes we're watching and all that.
Yeah, I did try to post your link in the chat, and I guess my Stream Elements bot is not working as usual, of course.
I'm copying it here.
Thank you.
I'll put it in the private chat. There it is.
Well, they can't see the private chat, though.
No, but can you copy it and put it in the thing? I can't put it in the chat.
Yeah.
I can't put the comments in here.
Thank you, Gorilla. And there it is. There's your link to Gorilla's Random Thoughts channel.
Yeah.
Please visit his channel. Fantastic.
Yeah, so Jack, so just come to us on Saturday at 6 o'clock Central Standard Time and come up on the panel. We'll talk about it, the episodes as we're going. We're just gotten to the point where it's really getting good.
Absolutely. You will not be disappointed. And lastly, Jack says, thank you, mates. This will be fun. Yes, it will. Come back for more, and then we'll get better and better, like I said. And if we do change the time slot or the day, I will keep you guys abreast of what's going on. So hopefully you can follow along with this. And I'll try to get a time that's convenient for everybody. It's not easy when the big YouTubers are sort of dominating the streams, and it doesn't give us many slots to choose from.
I don't know. I think we had a good turnout tonight.
Oh, I do too. I'm very happy. Yes, I'm very happy.
Yeah.
And Gorilla plugged your channel. I appreciate it. I am Pop Culture Curator. Join us on my channel on Mondays for Star Trek the Animated Series reviews. You'll find me on Anti-Derivative Jill's channel on Tuesdays for Star Trek the original series reviews. So both of those are equally fascinating. I highly recommend them. And next week, I promise I'll have most of the issues worked out, and I will attempt to post links for everybody in the chat. I want you to be able to check out these channels without having to look for them yourself. And I want to say from the deepest of my heart, thank you everybody in the chat for joining us. It means a lot to me, and I know it's a bit late for a lot of you. So especially that means a lot, knowing that you're taking time away from your busy schedule. And you too, Gorilla, thank you so much. And I want you to have a great night. I hope you can sleep okay tonight and still make it to work tomorrow in the morning on time.
Good thing I work a mindless job, so I don't need my brain.
Well, sometimes you don't want to do without it, right? Okay, well, everybody, you take care in the chat, because I know we're nothing without the chat, and the chat means everything to me. And thank you, Gorilla. Once again, you did a fantastic job as a co-host. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Well, with that, everybody, take care.